Thanks to an executive order from the Trump administration. It's open today. We'll talk to Juliette about that and about Trump's incredible comments. What was it, Vladimir Putin's comments about Ukraine yesterday?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then, inspired by Juliette's eternal mantra of pace the rage, we're checking in on you by phone or text 877-301-8970. 1 month into Trump's second term, do you feel like a marathon runner on mile 27? Are you finding yourself having to divert your gaze from Gulf of America foolishness to focus on mass deportations, government dismantling, and other horrors? Or are you trying hard to turn it all out? We are here for you. Ahead, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. A federal judge is declining to temporarily halt the work of President Trump's Doge entity. It's overseen by billionaire Elon Musk. More than a dozen Democratic state attorneys general had sued to try to block Musk's team from accessing government systems and laying off federal employees. As NPR's Bobby Allen reports, the judge did raise concerns about the legality of Musk's work in the White House.
14 states sued to prevent Doge from accessing government data and participating in laying off thousands of government workers. The states argued that only an official who was nominated by President Trump and confirmed by the Senate can have that much power. Judge Tanya Chutkan in Washington notes that Musk's actions appear to be precisely the executive abuses the Constitution intended to prevent, but she would not issue a temporary restraining order, saying the state's request lacked evidence. While Musk is the public face of Doge, the White House now says in court papers that Elon Musk is not its leader. Trump officials have now publicly stated who is running Doge. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky is asking the U.S. to stop using Kremlin disinformation when talking about Russia's war on Ukraine. Yesterday, President Trump blamed Ukraine for starting the war with Russia. That is not true. Russia launched a full-scale surprise invasion of Ukraine 3 years ago. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports this comes as Trump's special envoy on Russia and Ukraine arrived in Kyiv today.
Zelensky looked grim and exhausted as he briefed reporters in Kyiv about the challenges facing Ukraine a day after the U.S. and Russia appeared to take the first steps toward normalizing ties. After Trump recently said, "You shouldn't have started the war," a Kremlin talking point, Zelensky said Trump appeared to be living in a zone of disinformation. I would like to see more truth out of the Trump team, Zelensky said, because this affects Ukraine and not in a positive way. He said he hopes to make his case to Trump's special envoy to Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, who is in Kyiv for talks. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
Brazil's attorney general has indicted the country's former right-wing president, Jair Bolsonaro. NPR's Carrie Kahn says prosecutors accuse Bolsonaro of plotting a coup in 2022 to stay in power.
They're stunning charges. The standout points, prosecutors say that Bolsonaro and 33 others they said it was this vast criminal organization to keep him in power after he narrowly lost to the current president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. On top of that, there was also this plot outlined to poison Lula, kill his vice president and a Supreme Court justice who Bolsonaro has feuded with.
NPR's Carrie Kahn reporting. Bolsonaro has denied the allegations. He says they're fanciful and won't prevail in court. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. The doors of the JFK Library and Museum in Dorchester back open today after yesterday's shutdown and firing of 5 employees by the Trump administration. Meanwhile, senior leaders at the library say they were devastated that their dedicated and talented colleagues were treated the way that they were. Library and Museum, which opened in 1979, is one of 14 presidential libraries across the country and is administered by the National Archives and Records Administration, which is a federal agency. And Massachusetts-based IRS employees say they feel left in the lurch amid reports of buyouts and looming layoffs at that agency. They say that the impact of staffing cuts will be felt not just by workers, but by taxpayers as well. Here's GBH's Sarah Betancourt.
A local IRS staffer spoke to GBH News on condition of anonymity, saying they fear for their job. They say that while some people may think fewer IRS workers will mean fewer audits, that isn't true. But they say it will mean a shortage of employees who can help taxpayers when they run into problems.
There's a lot of times where I'm actually helping the taxpayer and being like, no, you actually don't owe this money. This is the reason why we fixed it. I fixed it on this side of it, and I'm telling you that instead of owing $10,000, you actually owe zero.
The staffer says the federal government has been sending buyout requests to IRS employees with language resembling that used in posts on X, formerly Twitter, made by Elon Musk. Sarah Betancourt, GBH News, 89.7.
21 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, helping NPR advance journalistic excellence in the digital age.
Houston Brady, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Thank you, and broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. I want to mention we're going to be back here on Friday with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, not a moment too soon, to talk about all these judges' actions regarding President Trump, and Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. Good morning, Jim.
Hey, and at 12 o'clock, one of the funniest people on the planet, Nikki Glaser, today is phoning in. We cannot wait. We're joined now by somebody who's fairly funny at the library desk, Juliette Kayyem. Juliette's former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and CNN's senior national security analyst. Hello, Juliette.
Hello, good morning. Thank you all.
Hello, Juliette. So we're going to play a little a sound from President Trump, but first of all, we're talking about Ukraine, and as people know, Zelensky and the Ukrainians have basically been left out of the peace talks between Russia and the United States. The Europeans have been left out as well. Trump is now calling Zelensky a dictator, in which some people are saying is a post of Vladimir Putin. And now we have President Trump himself yesterday falsely claiming Ukraine started the war with Russia.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
Zelensky also said that he's operating, that would be Trump, in some disinformation world created by Vladimir Putin. So what are we to make of this?
So, I mean, this is going to be the challenge of the next 4 years, which is, what do you make of a president who's just lies and is, has fake news essentially, and is trying to rewrite history. He did this with January 6th as well. So in the best scenario of which one would interpret Trump is he's playing hardball as he goes into negotiations to try to get some concessions by Russia. There's no evidence to suggest that that is working. The Russians are thrilled by our outreach, and from what we can tell, they're getting everything that they want. Remember, in the room in Saudi Arabia are people who are sanctioned by the United States because of their involvement with the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump wants credit for whatever is going to happen between him and Putin, and Zelensky is not playing along. I mean, he's got a country, and he's got a country that has that has done enough damage to Russia that there won't be a decisive victory for Russia. So a couple things that we know right now. Marco Rubio is an ineffective and powerless Secretary of State. Whatever he says to try to seem strong against Russia is just being ignored by the president. So all foreign policy, all diplomatic negotiations are going through the White House. And they are going through a group of people who want to get a deal. And that's basically what's going to happen at the price of a better deal that the Ukrainians may have gotten, and certainly by undermining our European allies. The second thing coming out of Munich, I just want to say, besides the war coming out of Munich, and it's just a sentiment that I think is accurate, is not only is the United States not an ally to the European Union or more specifically NATO, we are now viewed as an enemy. We are now viewed by most of the leaders as a country that will support in maybe everything but name future aggressions by Russia. And that's where we are. And so, can the Republican senators, the few who remain vocal on this issue, put up any sort of barrier? It doesn't seem like it. I mean, I think we're at the ripping the Band-Aid stage of this country.
It is. That's a fair description. It, in my opinion, is infinitesimally worse than this.
Yeah.
You know, your colleague on CNN, who was the former #2 guy at the FBI, Andrew McCabe, about a year or so ago was asked, I can't remember who the host was, the way you're describing, the question was like, the way you're describing Trump, who was then not president, you're describing him like he's a Russian asset.
Yeah.
He acts like he's a Russian asset. He is using Putin's language about this dictator thing with Zelensky. He excludes the country that was invaded from the peace talks. He's already conceded some things to Russia, and he has the nerve to say in the clip Marjorie played, Ukraine, which was invaded, started the war. By the way, people should remember, because we have in this country our recollections, usually that of a gnat. The International Criminal Court, to which we don't belong, unfortunately, has arrest warrants out for Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. And this is the guy who Donald Trump is legitimizing while he is trashing a man who has dedicated his life to trying to save the democracy in his country. It's unbelievable.
When I was emailing with your producers about, what the topics would be, I think I highlighted this one as number one. I go, there is no other story.
There really
there's a whole bunch of crap going on in the country we'll get to in a second. But when you think about what the danger is for what Trump is doing, and also let's just talk about the monetary aspects of this. You can't talk about Elon Musk and Dodge without talking about the monetary benefits they're getting. So as a side thing that's going on is Trump drafted, or his lawyers drafted, essentially a contract with Ukraine that the negotiations would go forward if we could have access to their minerals, highly lucrative. But what
half
people
of them, right? We want half of them, don't we?
But what people don't know is in that contract, which yours truly read, is an ability of the United States to subcontract out its, let's say we need it for national security reasons, to the private sector. So basically what's happening is Trump is doing negotiations to benefit to benefit his financial backers and his financial partners to get mineral resources in Ukraine. So he may be a Russian asset for pictures or whatever it may be that Putin has on him, but Putin and Trump are similar in that regard, right? And then in terms of the financial benefits that they want out of these negotiations. Russia wants open markets again with us. The second thing I say is they're very similar now in their leadership styles. I was talking about Marco Rubio and whether, because he had been such a pro-Ukraine senator, what's happened is very similarly, Putin and Trump have almost have no process of foreign policy or national security. It is the two of them. And you've heard Marco Rubio say it. You've heard the Secretary of Defense say it. They basically say, well, whatever I say doesn't essentially matter. What matters is what comes out of the White House. And they don't know. The tweet like this may come out. They don't know.
And this follows on J.D. Vance's speech lecturing all the Europeans and then going to meet with that far right, party in Germany. And Elon Musk, of course, is cozying up to far right parties as well.
Exactly, all throughout Europe. And the Europeans are having, I think, a second emergency meeting to expand, not simply to discuss sort of how are they the Ukrainian issue, but this push by American leadership into domestic politics in Europe to the right. Right. In other words, it is, and it's beyond right. This is
Well, one of these German parties, the other parties won't even associate with them because they think they're so far.
Marie Le Pen in France won't even associate with them. That's how bad they are. And I have to say, where is the Jewish community in the United States rallying against this? We're constantly talking about anti-Semitism here in the United States. Our leadership is promoting a party in Germany, which is an anti-Semitic party. I don't understand why groups here are not outraged.
By the way, we have to mention one person, then we got to move on. Of the 53 totally cowardly, sycophantic Republican senators. One actually spoke out on this yesterday. This guy, Roger Wicker from Mississippi, who is the chair, I think, of the Foreign Affairs Committee, actually called Putin what he was. And so, while he didn't out Trump by name, he actually did the correct. It's amazing you have to compliment somebody when they do the right thing, but he deserves a compliment. Roger Wicker from Mississippi. Can we come back to the United States?
By the way, he should be in jail and executed.
Putin should be, yes. Can we come back to the United States?
Yes.
Judge Ho in New York is holding a hearing today, and the Justice Department is going to be asking the judge to dismiss the case against Eric Adams. We've talked a lot about this. It appears to me, and you're a pretty good lawyer, that a judge in this case almost never denies the request. Does Ho have any latitude to do anything other than to grant it? What can he do?
I mean, he could force the government to show its case. In most instances, the government...
Like in a hearing, you mean?
Yeah, like in a more evidentiary hearing, which maybe discovery would be allowed. Ho just has to ask one question. I'm not quite sure how the setup works, but what number lawyer are you is what I would ask the U.S. government.
8 lawyers
Eight lawyers
resigned,
later,
for those who don't know, right?
We have the 9th lawyer, Eric Adams. For people who haven't been following the saga of Eric Adams, never has such a great city had such a miserable mayor. What a very bad person. He is indicted by the Biden Justice Department. He's a Democratic mayor of the largest city in the United States and an African American. So I want to talk about like political witch hunts. He is indicted for, and people forget this, for essentially, sort of colluding with other governments to receive benefits and then lying on election financing and lying to the FBI. The Trump comes in, says, I will give you a reprieve if you basically go after immigrants in your city. Right? I mean, this is what whose city is it? It's his city. He shows up on Fox News with this guy Homan, who's the immigration czar, and basically is like kissing the ring of what's about of allowing these kinds of enforcement measures that Trump wants to do. So it looks like a quid pro quo, smells like a quid pro quo
to you too.
Thank you, and the judge can ask about it.
So
he's not going to be, 4 of his deputy mayors are gone. There's a whole interesting sidebar here, which is the state constitution has an ability to essentially get rid of a mayor if he's unable to perform. The resignation of the 4 deputy mayors running the city is now being used as a potential reason to do it, and we haven't heard from the governor yet.
Can I repeat what we said yesterday, only because these are 8 courageous souls, including the woman who ran the office there, this Sassoon, I can't remember her first name.
Danielle.
I want to read the quote. We only read it 3 times yesterday from the number 2 guy in the prosecutor's office. Hagen Scotton sends a letter to Bove, who was then the acting attorney general, who ordered the dismissal, who used to be Trump's lawyer. Here's what he said in his resignation letter to Trump's guy at the Justice Department. I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your order to dismiss the motion to dismiss the Adams case, but it was never going to be me. In a sea of weak people, these 8 people should be celebrated. And as Marjorie noted yesterday, these are not left-wingers.
Republican conservatives.
Clerks for very conservative Republican justices.
He was a vet, and he was a
combat veteran.
Yeah, he was a clerk for.
Was he? I think he was
Rehnquist or
no, I think he was for Robertson Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And she was a clerk for Scalia.
No, these are when you look at what's happening, you are seeing these pieces of, sort of firing yourself or quitting as a form of protest of what's happening. We saw that at the Social Security Administration this weekend as well. It's not going to be enough, but it's certainly a statement about what is happening. And I think that, people ask, what does the resistance look like right now? What is it? I mean, maybe it's just, putting, making it just a little bit harder for them to do what they want to do. You just put a little bit of friction into this tidal wave of abusive, incompetent, you call it what you will, illegal activity, and you just try to slow it down.
Well,
That's
when you
gonna
say
be
illegal
success.
activity, though, Judge Chutkan, who we celebrated when she almost had the insurrection trial until she didn't, yesterday, not essentially, says you're not going to get a temporary restraining order on the firings nor on the data mining of our private information because there's no irreversible harm, which I don't get.
Imminent,
By the way,
irreparable. I don't get that. How is it not imminent?
Well,
and
before we do
irreparable?
this, since part of this is about firings, can we just hear, you pointed this out this morning, here's an anonymous federal worker recalling when they received the, quote, fork in the road email. This is on an episode of the Daily. Here
which
it is.
everyone should listen to.
Here it is.
A couple of years ago, I was working for the federal government about 15 hours a day. I did that because I believed in the work. And so I can't describe how hurtful it is to receive an email saying that you should go from a less productive public space to go to a more productive private space and work there. It was so hurtful to receive that email, especially coming from a government email address.
There are thousands like her.
Yeah, I should say in this Daily they talked to a lot of people, a combat Iraq vet that was fired from the VA administration. They talked to people about they're wondering if they can celebrate Black History Month, if they can celebrate Women's History Month, if they can wish people Happy Lunar New Year, any of these things. They talk about being so petty to take pictures of past directors out of frames and leaving the frames empty in the offices.
Hegseth is doing that. I mean, it's a petty. He's the Secretary of Defense. I mean, just grow up, man.
So why is this not irreversible harm, lawyer
It could be.
Kayyem?
I mean, it could be. And I haven't been following this case enough to know, whether there isn't an opening. But these, I from just the perch of that I'm looking at, these are irreversible. And I just want to give people an identity of who our federal workers are. 70% of people who work for the federal government do not live in D.C. This is impacting every community across the United States. This is not Elon Musk going after the bureaucrats in D.C. This is, from Kansas to California and
to the JFK Library,
to the
which we'll get
JFK
to
Library.
in a minute.
This is impacting them. The other is a percentage. I don't know the overall percentage, but the number of veterans that are hired by the federal government. 30%, because that was the diversity hiring in a good way. It was you had served our country in a volunteer military, so you had volunteered to serve our country, and we are going to put our thumb on the scale for you, and that's how you got so many. So that's why you're getting so many veterans. I think of TSA employees, it's even higher. So this is going to be reversible. They are making huge mistakes. When those mistakes are highlighted, two things are happening. One is they try to bring back the people, like at the nuclear security facility or the nuclear oversight facility. We'll see if they do that with the FAA. But what we're also learning is, I don't believe any of these numbers. I mean, they're basically lying about all of these numbers.
Here's what I don't understand. If you're supposed to have civil service protection and these firings are illegal, how can they happen? How can this be okayed by this Judge Chutkan? And we should remember.
It's not a final decision.
No,
she
it's not.
refused to issue
So that's
temporary restraining order.
That's where I think.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
If you are, as we learned during the first government shutdown under Trump, 2 weeks away from having no more money left because you're not making much money as a federal employee, then that is irreparable harm.
Yeah.
You can't pay your mortgage, you can't pay your rent, you
How
can't pay
about
your
data on us?
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, data on us too. But these are people that are not bringing in big bucks like Mr. Musk.
Yeah. And I think I've thought about sort of what is the argument. I was with people who are Trump supporters this weekend, and they were like really into sort of the efficiency argument, right? Like that, and so first of all, of course, like Clinton did do it. He had a process in which the first thing you want to do is sort of, look to people who are ready to offboard and sort of give them a little bit of a carrot to offboard faster. You also don't cut, like if someone says, okay, you run a program reduced by 10%, you don't do 10% across the board. You think, okay, this is a vertical I don't need anymore. I'm going to get rid of all those people. But instead they're doing it like this without any
Clinton
any
did
knowledge.
over months.
But I think the argument that does seem to resonate is both the mistakes argument that these 20-year-olds don't know what they're doing, the Elon argument, which is this is a person who is monetizing your private information for his benefit, and just go after Elon Musk. I mean, because the efficiency argument, I get so mad when Democrats go on air and they're like, well, yes, it's very important to have, to not have waste in government. Why are we giving them that argument? What? This is not
By the
about
way,
waste
as we're
and fraud.
speaking, there is a disabled Navy veteran on CNN describing the stress and the trauma that she is experiencing after having been laid off. And again, I don't understand this. The pain that she's going to feel, it seems to me, is irreversible, even if she gets her job back in a year. And I just don't understand this judge's decision.
Bottom line, we don't understand what Judge Chutkan was doing.
But can we talk more about layoffs in two places? One local, small numbers, but nevertheless, and then the FAA. JFK Library had to close yesterday. It's reopening this morning because of some of these layoffs. And I want to take it one step further. A friend of mine emailed me yesterday who's in the library business and sent me part of a letter sent by the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Education Department under Trump. Educational institutions have toxically indoctrinated students with false premise that the U.S. is built upon systemic and structural racism and advanced discriminatory policies and practices. She raises the issue. A huge focus of what happens at the library is history of the civil rights movement. Why do we not assume, since they get some federal money, the next thing is going to say that your education, your training, your field trips, your materials are violative of this notion? You got to get rid of them.
This is the party of free speech. Tell me,
exactly
tell me more about it. These people are such snowflakes. It is remarkable. They talk about free speech. He throws out the AP because the AP rightfully, as a global news agency, is not going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Unlike Google or Google Maps or whoever else did. So
they're censoring.
They're censoring
and erasing entire websites.
It is not about free speech. It's about the speech that they want.
Exactly.
But they surround, they sort of circle themselves. This is what Vance did in Munich, sort of with this notion of that this is free speech. They will go after the content of what our students are going to learn. That what's going to happen at the Department of Education in terms of both it's conditioning the receipt of federal funds, but as well as the certification process. In Project 2025, they talk about, accreditation process. They talk about accreditation as being the means by which they can force an agenda. And that's an agenda that is lies, that is ahistorical, and is not going to make us a competitive society. I think one of the things that you're starting to see already in the data coming out of Doge at the Atlantic, where I write, as a piece on it, is the brain drain, is that you're talk about irrevocable harm. If you, it's not even coming into government. If you want to, if you are a smart person who wants to have unfettered research capabilities in, let's say, technology or engineering or space or whatever, you are not aligning with this country.
Well, you just go to the 51st state and do your research there up in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
Before you go, layoffs at the FAA too. You're a security person. How does that affect the security in a month where we've had several plane crashes?
We've had
two large, a couple of small.
It's not good. I'm still flying. They say that it's not going to impact air traffic controllers, but that's like saying, air traffic controllers just sort of like live in a vacuum, right? That we could just put them there and then they're going to look at it. The entire FAA apparatus is about supporting the safe and secure transportation of people in the air, right? I think it's like almost 1 million or 800,000 a day. And we've had a very good track record until the accident in DC. Air traffic controllers are the most visible person in a network of the FAA that supports that common mission. So the idea that, you can get rid of anyone. The FAA was understaffed. It aggressively hired in the Biden administration. That aggressive hiring was important because there were safety concerns, and now all of those people, presumably
so how do you
those
know
are the
it's
probation.
safe to fly? Why are you just saying that?
I'm
So
telling
why you flying?
I have to for work. I mean, look, overall, it's still a pretty good safety record.
Well, until they fire people.
Exactly. I mean, but this is the thing is like, until people realize what government means in their lives, a message that the Democrats failed to make.
Absolutely.
We are all going to be bearing the risk that is the result of a billionaire and the president, and I put those in the right order from what I can tell, deciding that we will carry that risk, they won't. And I want to ask both of them, when was the last time they flew commercial?
Okay.
I would say it would be
so I mean, there's nothing you can do. Just say, yes, I am taking on the risk because this guy, because Trump has basically ceded Democratic governance to Elon Musk. Something will give or it won't. Right, and we'll just see.
Of course, it might have been the time that Trump groped the woman in the airplane. Yeah. That was a commercial.
Was it?
Commercial airplane.
That's good.
I think that was back in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
Elon Musk
Juliette,
hasn't.
That was an upbeat presentation.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
I'm prepped
Really
for your
brave.
12 o'clock. I love her, by the way.
She
Will
is
you tell her I
fabulous.
love her?
No, we won't.
Okay, bye.
Okay, good to
Thank
see you,
you,
Juliette Kayyem.
Juliette Kayyem is the former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security under President Barack Obama, the faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and CNN senior national security analyst. Up next, we're going to open the lines for you guys at 877-301-8970, phone and text. When Trump was sworn in, listeners told us they wanted to pace the rage, the great phrase we got from Juliette. Well, it's a month in. How's that going? Are you pacing the rage? Are you turning this all out? Are you having a nervous breakdown? Are you drinking more scotch? Stick around. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
A man described as a leader of a Japanese organized crime syndicate is on trial in the United States for trafficking nuclear materials from Myanmar.
Anybody who has heard about this case, their first reaction is it sounds like it's out of a Hollywood movie.
High crimes, deception, and a deep dive into Myanmar's black market. That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts and working to connect industry leaders to graduates, elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate. And the Worcester Art Museum, presenting Flora in Winter, with artworks reimagined and stunning floral arrangements all throughout the museum. February 27th through March 2nd. Tickets available at the door. worcesterart.org.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio. I'm Mark Regan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back here Friday. Retired federal judge Nancy Gertner will join us. Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. And today, in the noon hour, 12 o'clock, Nikki Glaser, I would argue the funniest person in America, is calling in. And then right after that, we have three celebrated restaurateurs who will join us, each of whom has just opened new restaurants. We want to talk to about what that is all about. But first, it's a time for, I guess, our periodic check-in on how you're doing, almost a month into Trump's second presidency. The first time around, we did this a couple days after he was sworn in, we were sort of, to use Juliette's phrase, pacing the rage. Now with Trump ruling by executive order, raiding the government in the name of so-called efficiency, selling Ukraine and Palestinians out from under themselves, are you outraged or already outraged? The content is coming at all of us so fast. A lot of people are too fatigued to feel anything. Give us a call or text at 877-301-8970. A month in, how successful have you been in your effort to not let Trump totally dominate your existence? I have failed miserably, by the way. And if you have passed that test, how are you doing it? How are you mixing in other things that matter in your life other than obsessing on the actions and behaviors of the re-elected president of the United States? 877-301-8970. I have to say, and it's not just because of this job, I am consumed every waking hour. And I'm sure if I remember my dreams, I'm probably dreaming again about Donald Trump, too. How are you doing?
He's a brain worm in your head.
I said that this morning. He is living. It's like RFK's come to mind.
Living in your head rent-free. Well, because what I do for a living, it's really hard for me to escape it, too. But, I am a little bit more optimistic that it's not going to happen right away. But when you have hundreds of thousands of federal workers all over the country laid off, and you have these increasing surveillance state activities in the United States of America, which is so hard to believe. I mean, patrolling whether you're going to celebrate Black History Month, or patrolling what a third grade teacher is going to say in the classroom. I mean, all these things I think are going to, I do think there's going to be a massive take to the streets thing. I do. Were
you the one who told me this morning, or was it Zoe, about the person who lost their federal job, was fired, and voted for Trump, and asked if they blamed Trump, and they said, no, I blame Elon Musk.
Right.
I mean, that's the problem in this country.
Well,
would you not say?
That is the problem.
Total denial.
Jim, I read most of the text messages. We have people that believe, that little Martians are living in we have people believing crazy stuff, and they're texting me to tell me about this crazy stuff, and I'm not mentioning it.
Even if they part of you used to say to me, you haven't said this in a couple of weeks, well, the reason they don't know X, Trump voter, for example, is because they only watch Fox News. Do you think anybody who watches Fox News think Ukraine started the war with Russia? Do you think any of them think that?
Yes, I do.
Oh my
I think that they think that the president knows some secret information that they don't know. He was on last night with Sean Hannity
and Musk,
and lying, and I think people believe him. And I also
how do you think J.D. Vance feels, by the way, that Musk is at his side, at Trump's side? This is the second interview I think he's done in the last few weeks where Elon Musk is with the president of the United States, sort of his co-equals, doing an interview with. Could you go home at night if you're Sean Hannity and look at yourself in the mirror? I watched about 20 minutes of this thing. It's unbelievable. Laughs so hard at non-jokes, asks no follow-up to anything.
Well, that's one of the beauties of being a billionaire. If you were a billionaire, everybody laughs at every joke.
That's totally true.
It's so important yesterday, even if the joke is horrible. And you just look at Musk and you think there's something off there, obviously, that he seems to have no empathy or compassion for anybody. But anyway, we're going to talk about how people are coping with all this. Are they just ignoring it? Are they trying to ignore it? Are they limiting their news reading? Are they having edibles every day? Are they training for the marathon? Or what are people doing to cope with this mess? Jen in Watertown, you are first. Hi, Jen.
Hey there.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jim and Marjorie.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, let me just turn my volume down so it's messing with me. So what I'm doing is I'm meditating and I'm hanging out with my kids and I'm working on the upcoming campaigns. There's a campaign for Democratic judge in Wisconsin, and then there are congressional special elections happening in Florida and New York. So I'm going to work on those. I think the meditation and any of the practices we have are really important because all this stuff is designed to be a hit to our nervous system and keep us upset. I think the calmer we can all stay, the better. So thank you.
Well, Jen, don't go away. Marjorie meditates, and she's a basket case.
The problem
so how is that helping?
My meditation routine has been disrupted because I sit down there in my little chair, and then all I hear is the Donald. The Donald.
I know, but Jim, imagine how much more of a basket case she would be if she didn't meditate at all.
That's true. But you know something?
You're a good way to start.
But the thing about
Jen.
the kids, if you have children, particularly young children, that you can sort of sit down and play Candyland with, or take them to the park. I mean, they're a saving grace because you've got young kids, or in my case, I got a couple of young grandchildren. That is one great way to get away from this horror.
Zoe just sent us a note and said, hard to meditate to the sound of planes falling out of the sky.
That's a good point. That's a good point, too.
Zoe.
That's a good point, too.
877-301-897. That was a wonderful person to start with because she has an agenda. Rather than, mourn over the current losses, which you and I are doing, she's getting involved in special elections, which we can't do, but other real people can do. She's getting involved in a judge's election in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's not local, obviously, but a lot of people have talked about getting a job. Speaking of children, here's one running right over to say hello to you, Jim.
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Absolutely.
Anyway, a lot of people have said get involved in your town, in your city.
Are you involved in your town?
No, but again, I
No.
don't think I'm in a position
No,
from
I
what
don't
I
think
do
so.
to be involved in
No, I
my
don't think you are.
city or town.
No, I think
Adam in Boston.
Hello, Adam
Although
in
I wish
Boston.
we would have more places to park in Brookline.
Okay, good.
Adam in Boston, thank you for calling.
Hello, Adam.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, good. I'm glad we're here, so that's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay. You know, even getting ready to talk about this, I start feeling my stomach and my throat.
Totally get it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was really paying attention during the Bush administration and with the passing of the Patriot Act and other such, I would say, fascist type activity.
Yes.
And when he first got elected, I thought he was just gonna hook up his elite rich buddies and we'd be over him. But with his return, as someone who has read the Declaration of Independence, and I'm really in love with what the doctrine says and what this country was supposed to be providing for all people. What's happening right now is, yes, it's numbing. We become desensitized to it, of course. But I think for those of us who really care, it's beyond an outrage. I would say the day he got reelected, America died.
Well, the pursuit of happiness seems to be right out the window. That is for sure, Adam. One of the Declaration's promises. I mean, it is like it's almost like the thought police have descended. It's all this regulation about what people can say. And by the way, when they were taking stuff off the websites during COVID, it was because it was dangerous information that would talk about, these weird, products that were supposedly going to cure COVID.
Yep.
It wasn't like a
censorship thing.
It wasn't censorship. No, it wasn't. This is pro-Trump. We're going to take that off. It was pro-lies about a health crisis that killed 1 million people in the United States of
You
America.
want to understand? Maybe you understand. I understand because it is easy to look at our own woes first. That we don't, at least not enough people care about us totally throwing Ukrainians who've fought to keep democracy alive to the wolves. I understand why we don't care about the Palestinians, at least 50% of us don't, because they're not us. They look different from us. Why are we not upset when we watch TV and see that a disabled Navy veteran who was just on CNN lost her job and is experiencing, quote, trauma after she served this country? Do people not care about that either?
Well, I think that the guy that runs the Office of Management and Budget now, whatever it is, that Russell Voigt guy, that's what he wanted. He talked about he wanted...
He was the head of Project 2025.
Yes, he was the head of Project 25. And if you recall, the president, Trump, that would be, said over and over again that he didn't know anything really much about anything about Project 25. And even though all the people that were on it worked for him, and Voigt was, I think he was... Vote, whatever his name is the big deal that ran Project 2025.
He ran it.
And, he has said that he wants people to be traumatized.
We
in
have
the
sound
civil
from
workforce.
this.
Yeah,
Here
we
he
should
is.
play
He's
it.
currently head of the Office of Management and Budget, one of the most important positions in the second Trump administration, or any administration. Here's a little bit about what he said about defunding federal bureaucracies.
We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. We want, when they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want their funding to be shut down so that the EPA can't do all of the rules against our energy industry because they have no bandwidth financially to do so. We want to put them in trauma.
You know what's even worse than what he had to say? Did you hear the woman laughing in the background?
Yeah, she laughed in the
That was obviously
background.
quite funny.
Yeah, and again, I talked to the Daily this morning. It makes you almost in tears. It's the New York Times podcast called The Daily, where they interviewed a bunch of federal workers, and you just thought these people wanted to work for the government. They didn't want to go work for some high-powered law firm. They were willing to take the pay cut to go work for the government because there was some assurance of some kind of job security. And you just think, wow. I mean, what is wrong with Mr. Vogt that he wants to put people in trauma? And one of them was a combat vet from Iraq who just got fired from the VA. He thought he was safe because he was at the VA where he had job security. He was a combat. Forget that. The veterans that we feel entitled, feel we should give jobs to, they're out the window, I guess, too. Courtney and Peabody, thank you for calling.
Hello, Courtney.
Hey,
So I used to listen to you guys all the time before I moved to Portugal in November. And I started applying for my visa to Portugal in January, moved in November. I'm back here now just to get my visa, which was finally issued, and I'm going back tomorrow night.
Why'd you move to Portugal?
Well, originally when I started in January, it was really just I needed a change. I needed to bring some adventure back into my life. I was retired, living in Marblehead, and a little bit. Some of it was politics, but it was not a huge factor back then. But it's become, since I've been living there, it has become a huge relief that I'm there. And I find that I listen to very little news there. I receive the Heather Cox newsletter every morning, which I read there. That makes my blood boil, and that's it. I spend the rest of my day trying not to think about it, and I hear it's not discussed there, so it's not like it's in my face all the time as it is here.
So there's an easy solution if people are upset about all this. Just move to Portugal. That's the, hey, Courtney, stay in touch with us. I know this may be painful, but you can actually listen to us online from Portugal and maybe give us a call from there from time to time.
We have some helpful suggestions. You don't have to move to Portugal, not yet anyway. The Serenity Prayer, somebody said that's a good one. Margie says some chocolate therapy here. Somebody else says I'm spending as much time on a chairlift as I possibly can. George from Hollis, New Hampshire says he's outraged, engaged, and he feels like his head is going to explode, so he's not coping that well. Listen to this one. Instead of morning affirmations with my coffee and GBH listening, I pivoted to cyberbullying POTUS on his Instagram account. Healthy? Who cares? Cathartic? Absolutely.
Okay, we have to take a break, Marjorie.
We have to take a break. Okay. Yeah. We're talking about how you're coping with what seems to be the unraveling of the United States of America, not only domestically, but in our position in the world. When a European leader said they used to think that the United States was a competent country, they don't anymore. That really got me. But anyway, we're going to keep talking about this to the top of the hour. The number is 877-301-8970. This is Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Bryan Stevenson. 10 years ago, the civil rights lawyer's memoir, Just Mercy, was published, documenting his career fighting for disadvantaged clients and people wrongly convicted and placed on death row. It awakened Americans to the injustices within our criminal justice system. On the 10th anniversary of the landmark book-turned-film, Bryan Stevenson joins us to reflect on what has and hasn't changed since it was published. Tune in for that and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Music Worcester, presenting the London-based orchestra, the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, with pianist Bruce Liu, Sunday, March 9th at historic Mechanics Hall. Tickets are on sale at worcestermusic.org. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. United around a vision for public access to revolutionary education, UMass Amherst gives students the opportunity to seek solutions to the challenges of today. Learn more at umass.edu.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Friday, we're back here with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. That's going to be a busy segment. Love letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. And as I said, in about 15 minutes, I think the funniest person in America, Nikki Glaser, is going to join us on the phone. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about our ability or inability to maintain calm, at least some of us, during the beginning of Trump's second presidency. It's hard to keep up with all the changes, real or perceived. So are you able to both stay informed and stay sane. I think that's the goal. 877-301-8970.
Well, we got a couple of texts about eggs, and that's very important since I went to Trader Joe's yesterday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There were none. Not a single
None,
one.
really?
None.
Wow.
Catherine in the car says, I'm taking special care of my chickens so I can give out eggs to my friends and family.
That's
Jack
so
says,
nice.
I'm doing quite well. My backyard chickens start laying again on Inauguration Day. I did not vote for Trump, but I appreciate that he fixed my egg crisis. So how about that?
How did he fix the egg crice?
Well, he hasn't fixed the egg crisis because
Well,
there
other
aren't
than
any
that,
eggs, but
okay,
that's what
fine.
Lance seems to think.
Jack, too.
Oh, whatever his name
Whoever
is.
he is, yeah.
Lance in Southborough says he's just grateful that the soda straw crisis is finally over because the president has now banned paper straws.
Paper straws. Thank God for that. Judy in Arlington, welcome to the show. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So I want to tell you, I have my name as Facing the Rage in Washington Post because of Juliette. But anyway.
Wait, what about the Washington Post? What are you doing about the Washington Post?
I canceled my subscription.
Oh, okay. By the way, the latest thing, for those who don't know, in addition to killing Jeff Bezos, who owns the Post, killing the endorsement of Kamala Harris, a couple days ago, Common Cause wanted to put 2 full-page ads in about Musk. They were approved, and then after they were approved by the ad people at the Washington Post, they were killed by the paper. And the conventional wisdom, which is hard to resist, is that Jeff Bezos was responsible because he didn't want to upset Donald Trump. Go ahead, Judy.
Absolutely. So I stopped using Google for search. You can use other searches like DuckDuckGo.
Yeah.
And so that feels good.
Good.
And also, well, Marjorie, were you going to say something?
No. You're the caller. Go ahead.
Okay. So every so often, I look at people on Facebook that I'm somewhat friends with who are Trump supporters, and there are crickets. So I feel like it's going to trickle down eventually to these people, but it's not quick enough for those of us that have seen it coming.
By the way, that is the most important thing you're going to say, Judy, and thank you for your call. It is not quick enough. There's a huge amount of suffering from these layoffs to, as I've said every day, the people who are terrorized by the prospect of mass deportation, even though it hasn't been implemented nearly as viciously as Donald Trump and this Homan character intended. But there's a lot of fear, a lot of trauma, and I don't think those people can wait. You have something there?
Bob in Rehoboth says he's hiding under his bed. And Brian says, at this point, Marjorie and Jim, my only hope is the asteroid that is 7 years away.
Don't say this.
and I'm going to talk about the asteroid a little bit later in the show that may hit us. And I guess Brian is concerned if it hits, that's the end of it all.
Pat in Salem, you're next on Boston Public Radio.
I
Hi
should
there.
say there's a very low chance of it hitting us, by the way.
Hi, Pat.
Hi. Good morning. First time, long time.
Thanks.
I listened to Michael Curry the other day on your program, and he really moved me. The way that he speaks about DEI.
He's fabulous.
Anyway, I signed up for the NAACP. It's a consumer pledge.
Yep.
And it is a way for us in a capitalist society to have some response.
By the way, to what's going on. Pat, I'm glad you brought that up. Michael said yesterday, if you go to NAACP.org, you can find what they agreed to do this week, and a list of companies that have retreated from DEI, which they urge you not to patronize, and those who have stood strong in the face of pressure from the administration and the NAACP. And by the way, under Michael's leadership, because his committee put this forward, is urging you that's where you should spend your money. Pat, thanks for reminding us. By the way, an anonymous texter says, Jim, someone said they saw you at a Rivian dealership yesterday. Is that true? That's about the whole issue in the spirit of Sheryl Crow about whether Tesla owners like me should be selling our Teslas.
You know, a lot of people are mentioning, we just had an ad about concert music as a way to cope with all this.
Very good point.
And this other person, Tamara, said she's running a theater camp now for kids aged 6 to 14, carrying on the arts and inspiring kiddos is getting me through this whole thing. I think that's a great point. The arts can be very, 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 very helpful. Let's go to Jay in Somerville. Hi, Jay.
Hello, Jay.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
I just wanted to talk about Tim Snyder. He's, the guy that said, do not obey in advance.
Anticipatory obedience. He's at Yale. He wrote that in 2017.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, his book on tyranny has got 20 it's like a cheat sheet for like what's going on right now and how you can kind of stay sane. And I hope everyone will look at it. It's like $7 online.
Great.
And it talks about how you can kind of engage with the people around you and stay sane. Like just such things as making small talk. Don't be afraid to stand out. Contribute to good causes. Establish a private life. All these things, like I've been trying to take for myself, because when you just read all this stuff, you go crazy. You need to have some sort of action that feels like you're tempering the rage a little.
Yeah.
And his book has been huge for me, so I hope people can look at it. And that's my biggest push for it.
We've been trying to get him.
What is the title again? It's on tyranny. That's what I thought it was, on tyranny.
We have been actively trying to get Snyder on the show. We hope we will, and that's a wonderful tip, Jay. Thank you for the call. There's good news on the asteroid, though, Marjorie.
What?
An anonymous texter texted, said Trump and his Sharpie will change the trajectory of the asteroid. If you remember, that was the weather map thing from the Trump.
What's the name of the Leonardo DiCaprio movie when the asteroid is coming?
Don't Look Up?
Don't Look Up, thank you. And they're trying to warn everyone that the asteroid is not coming, but people don't believe it because of false news, kind of like a Fox News kind of thing, saying it's not really coming, and everyone believes it. And then, that's the end of them.
Nicely put.
Nicely put.
Suzanne,
okay.
You're in a car. You're on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Thanks so much for taking my call.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm getting some pushback here.
It's our apologies. Just keep talking. It's fine on this end.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for everything that you're doing to keep us sane, because I think talking about this in a multifaceted way is really important.
Good, thank you.
And I also agree with a lot of the previous callers. One of the things that I've been doing to keep myself sane is refusing to give in to the psychological campaign, because once we do that, then once again, Trump has won on yet another level. So every day I try to do at least one thing. For one thing, I call our senators, and I think we can...
Wait, I didn't hear that. Call who? Who do you call?
I call our senators, Senator Warren,
great.
Because I feel as though they are doing the hard work in the trenches, and that we need to support them and let them know that we stand behind them. So I call them frequently about a specific topic and
Good
tell
for
them
you.
that.
That's great.
Second, if I do not, if I decide not to start at Target or someplace else, I write them a note and I let them know why. Because if we don't do it, that's one thing. But if they don't know about it, then that's one thing less. So I always try to let them know. And I try to do at least one thing every day.
Good for you.
Suzanne, that's great.
I'll let you go. The connection's not great. Suzanne, that was
Thank
terrific.
you very much for the call. Doing one thing every day. Pat from Rhode Island says she's emailing Republican senators to hopefully let them wake up to the illegal acts of the administration. I think they know what the illegal acts of the administration are, but they're afraid of being primaried, so they're not doing anything about it. Here's one. My husband is a Republican. Marriage barely made it through Trump #1. Now I go into my car and scream obscenities. Most days I have a sore throat and I am hoarse.
You know what's a good sign? And tell me if you think this is overly optimistic before we take a break here. We ordinarily get a lot of Trump texts during discussions like this, Trump supporter texts saying how we're getting the facts wrong, we don't know what we're talking about. I assume you're not reading them because they're not coming in, so maybe even they can't defend.
Oh, no, they're coming in.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
Well, let's read. What are they saying?
Well, just a while ago, somebody thought we were talking about Ukraine with Juliette Kayyem. Why aren't we talking about the fact that Joe Biden got $1 billion in a quid pro quo from Ukraine? That is not true.
Well, that's why we're not talking about it.
Investigated. Well, the ones that they send me, they're not true. I mean, you're getting suckered, basically. Whoever wrote that, you were getting suckered. That's not true. It's been disproven over and over and over and over and over. Again, Hunter Biden did some tough, bad things, and he was pardoned by Joe Biden, which
broke some laws,
disagree with.
too.
And he wasn't fair in his taxes and all that kind of stuff. But they never got Joe. Anyway, coming up.
You feel better or you don't?
No, I don't.
Good.
Okay. But I'm going to feel better in a couple of minutes.
I think you might.
Because up after the news, we're going to talk with the great comedian Nikki Glaser. She is going to be calling us, and she's going to talk about a new show she's got on in Boston. You may have seen her at the Golden Globes. She was incredible she was the host of the Golden Globes. And you might have seen her in that kind of very raunchy roast of Tom Brady. We're going to talk about her career. Up next, comedian Nikki Glaser. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Of echoing false Russian rhetoric.
We are seeing a lot of disinformation, and it's coming from Russia. We understand.
President Zelensky is heard through an interpreter on the BBC. A U.S. special envoy on Ukraine and Russia arrived in Kyiv today. It has
to suspend the charges, while Adams offered to help the White House crack down on migrants without legal status. That deal was so controversial, Hochul is deciding whether to use her authority to oust Adams. She met with civic leaders here in Manhattan yesterday. Brian Mann, NPR News, New York.
Among the FDA staffers who are not authorized to speak publicly. Marcos Contreras is a pharmacist at the University of California Davis Veterinary Teaching Hospital. The FDA drug reviewer who spoke to NPR said they were still in their probationary period and had worked there less than 2 years. Will Stone, NPR News.
Creating a greener local economy. The award is given out annually, and Thomas must be so happy today. It's the 80th anniversary of the nearly 5-week bloody World War II battle that claimed thousands of lives on both sides, and in the end, the U.S. Marines emerged victorious over Japan. Just a personal note, to this day, my uncle Peter Santoro, often referred to as the most shot-at U.S. soldier at Iwo Jima. He received 2 Purple Hearts from that battle, and doctors were still removing shrapnel from his back 20 years after the war. And yes, Uncle Peter was there for the raising of the U.S. flag on that hill. In sports, it's another quiet night in professional local sports. The Celtics are back tomorrow playing the 76ers in Philly, and the Four Nations Face-Off Championship game takes place over at the TD Garden tomorrow night. Team USA versus Canada. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Indeed, designed to be an end-to-end hiring solution for businesses of all sizes to attract, interview, and hire candidates, all from one platform. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR.
It's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Thank you, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Hello again, Jim.
We should remind people we're back at the library on Friday. Retired federal judge Nancy Gertner will join us to discuss many of the nightmares in D.C. We're joined now via phone by Nikki Glaser, comedian, actor, host of this year's Golden Globes, and the woman who had this, among other things, to say about Tom Brady at his 2024 Comedy Central roast.
I just want to say for the record, I do have a boyfriend. We've been together for 10 years. He's the love of my life. He's here tonight, and he's sitting right over there, and I want to say publicly, I would you in the face for a lottery ticket to this guy's He's perfect. He was on my fantasy team last night. My has CTE now. I would show you, but the NFL's making me cover it up.
Okay, you're going to have to fill in the blanks by yourself. Nikki has 6 shows. It's her Alive and Unwell tour, which, by the way, Marjorie, could be the name of our show
That's
in
right.
the last few months. It's this weekend at the Box Center Wang Theater, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 7 o'clock and 9:30. Go to boxcenter.org. It's B-O-C-H as in Ernie, boxcenter.org for tickets and info. Nikki, we were huge fans even before you ruined Tom Brady's life.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Nikki. We saw most of your stuff last night. I was on the floor it got me off of Donald Trump. It was a welcome relief. But before we talk about what's going on in your life, tell us about the show. What's going on at the Box Center.
First of all, listening to that Tom Brady roast again, like I rarely listen to myself, and my hand is like in my head, like, who are you to say this to someone? And like, shout out to whoever had to bleep that out. They were working overtime on that. I mean, what is wrong with me? It's so funny to hear myself and feel such shame. Like I feel like I'm my own mom listening to that. Like, I can't even believe. I don't even know who I am at roast. I really don't relate to that person. I become like possessed and lose all sense of decency. And
you did.
It's crazy. I don't relate to that person. But my show at the Wang Theater, I'm doing 6 shows this weekend, and there's still tickets available, I believe, to the late show on Sunday night.
Yep.
But all the other ones are sold out, and it's insane. My life has changed because of the Tom Brady roast, and certainly, the last time I was in Boston, I did the Wilbur, and I think we sold out 2 shows. But this is next level, and my show is just, my stand-up is not exactly roast-like, but there will be a roast of Boston in my set at the end of it. I'm roasting every city on my tour that I'm doing right now, and. It's just all new material that is not on my special that just was nominated for an Emmy and a Grammy. It came out last May, and this is all just new material I've been working on since then and gearing up to tape my next special.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because you are right in these people's face. At the Tom Brady roast, you're going after Gronkowski, you went after Randy Moss, you went after, Kevin Hart. And then at the Golden Globes, it was milder. It was, not X-rated, but you were still, it was Epic's biggest night and all this kind of stuff. So you got incredible chutzpah. I right next to people, saying these things. Are you nervous, or how does that work?
I think I dissociate. I really do. I think I have a job to do. I feel like a little bit like an assassin. Like I cannot have empathy. I can't. For the Golden Globes, I certainly I pulled back, and people were surprised that I was able to do that. But I'm not stupid. I want a career, and I know what I was hired to do at the Tom Brady roast, and that was. That was a roast. It was in the title. And then the Golden Globes is you're a host. You're supposed to, celebrate these people. And there's an expectation to take them down a little bit because of people like Ricky Gervais and Tina Fey and who have hosted in the past and who have done kind of like a more skewering monologue. So it definitely gave me leeway to go there. But, I want to be able to, still work in this business. So you pull back a little bit. And also they didn't sign up. They weren't being paid to be roasted. Tom Brady was, and he knew the score. So, no, it's insane. Like I said, listening to that roast, I can't listen to myself because I don't relate to who that person is. Like I really try to embody someone who I think the performance requires. It is me because I write the jokes and they come from a place of a really dark part of my soul where I can see the worst in people because I, am a comedian with low self-esteem. So I just kind of turn, the way I think about myself a lot of times when I look in the mirror or on my worst days, I kind of turn that outward. And I think that's why I'm able to roast so well is because I've been roasting myself for forever, So it's like, but saying it to people's faces, I literally don't think about it at all, because if I let it in a little bit, I will slip up. It's like this is a balance beam routine, and I can't think about what the judges are thinking or what what the audience is thinking. I have to kind of tune that out and just nail it. It really is. It's an out of body experience for sure. And then afterwards, I go, oh my God, who is that girl? What did I just say? I really don't relate to her at all. I'm not that person.
We're talking to Nikki Glaser, who has 6 shows at the Wang Theater this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The only one that is not sold out is Sunday night at 9:30. Nikki, I would say the last joke you tell, I don't know if tell is the right verb, the last joke you do at the Brady roast is, I would argue, the funniest line I've ever heard. Why don't you share that with people right now on the radio?
Wait, which one was that?
No, that was a joke. That was the one about how Tom Brady can do the impossible and
but not everything. Not everything.
I think we'll skip
that was me threatening him to.
Yeah, let's not. Okay, fine.
To go home with me.
Now,
no. I would not. Believe me. I understand the parameters.
Can we talk about a dark moment in your career for 1 second? I hope this doesn't offend you.
Yeah.
Okay, The dark moment, I think, this is the first time I ever saw you, is when you were eliminated in the first round of Dancing with the Stars. So talk about Gleb Savchenko for us, your partner, for a couple of
I could talk
seconds.
about Gleb all day. My dance partner in Dancing with the Stars was, I think he still is probably the most good-looking person I've ever seen in my life. Like, one of those people that just, like, takes your breath away when you see them. I've never really, like, everywhere we would go together, people would stop and say, oh, my God, you're so handsome. Like, he just gets it all the time. It's crazy. And they matched us together, which I thought was like, oh, they, like, think I'm hot, too. But it actually turns out that his wife demanded that he be with me instead of the girl they wanted
That is
him to
not
be.
true. Is that true?
100% true, because I went out with Alexis Wren, who was the girl that he was supposed to be partnered with, for lunch after the show was over, and she said, oh my God, did you know his wife didn't let him be my partner, and she chose you?
Oh,
so that is
God.
100% true.
Oh, my God.
Luckily, I didn't find that out until much later on, when my self-esteem was already in the dumps after being eliminated. But, it was actually, it was the darkest day of my career, and I say that facetiously, but also it's kind of, I'm being honest. Like, it's really embarrassing to, do something that's really out of your comfort zone, you're not good at, you've never done before, and then, flip that switch of, like, you're not doing it as a joke. Like, you have to do Dancing with the Stars, you have to really take it seriously. And they don't allow you to just, like, phone it in. Like, it becomes your life. And so when you do that, when you go, okay, you know what? I'm not a joke. I'm going to really try to be a dancer. I'm going to take this seriously. And then they instantly say, ew, we don't like that. You're horrible. It's humiliating. Like, it would be one thing if I didn't take it seriously, but I really did. And I tried so hard. And it was just, and I was like, it was the first time that ABC or a network had, like, ever given me a chance to be on their airwaves, and like, because I had been known as, like, a kind of raunchy comedian that you couldn't trust to be on live TV, network TV. Oh, she's going to say something inappropriate. And I've always been like, I know the rules. Like, I know when to be dirty. I know when to not be. Like, I'm not, like, just cussing and talking about my sex life in front of children all the time. Like, I'm not an idiot. Like, people just expect me to just fly out the handle at any moment. But, and so when I was on ABC, I was like, oh, this is my first chance. Well, Dancing with the Stars, people don't know. It's really, like, a chance for them to audition talent.
Yeah.
So, like, oh, this person, they really like this person. Let's give them a TV show. So it's kind of their way of putting in front of their audience, like, who do you like? And instantly they were like, we don't like Nikki Glaser. So it was a rejection, not only from the dancing community, but, like, America. It was humiliating. But on the flip side, it was so embarrassing that, like, nothing I do after that will ever feel as bad as that.
By the way, Nikki, I want you to know, as someone who consumed that whole performance, I blame it on Gleb. That's my...
That's right.
We're talking to
That's
Nikki
right.
Glaser. Yeah, you should too.
I do too. He lost hope in me. He knew. It was so funny because, like, if you just look at me, you could maybe go like, oh, she's like, alive, like maybe a ballerina or something. And you could see when he first met me, he had, like, hope in his eyes. And then he did a little, like, dance with me just to test, like, just to say hello. And I saw, like, the passion and the, like, any kind of hope drain from his face so rapidly. And he just knew. He gave up on me before I gave up on myself. So, yeah, let's blame Gleb.
We're talking to Nikki Glaser. She's got 6 shows this weekend. They're all sold out except for the late show on Sunday night. But it's at the Box Center, Wang Theater, if you want to try to get tickets for that late night show. So there was a great story you talked about at the beginning of your career, where I guess Paula Abdul was supposed to be on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and she couldn't show up. And then what happened?
They called me. I had already been vetted and, like, approved to perform a stand-up routine on The Tonight Show. I was 24 years old. 24. And how they do that is, like, the bookers work with you and they come see you at the club and they make sure your 5-minute set is just perfectly where they want it to be. And then they say, okay, good. After 9 times of them coming up to see you over a year and a half, they finally say, this is the set we want you to do on The Tonight Show. You're locked in. And then they just make you wait. And I had waited, I think I'd waited like over a year. And I just felt like it was never going to happen, and then one day, I got a call at 11 in the morning can you be here at 4:00 to tape the Tonight Show? And can you do that stand-up set that we approved a year or so ago? Yeah. And I said, yeah, of course, having no recollection of what those jokes were. I mean, like, I had forgotten it. I assumed they had, written it down and they hadn't. So I just, I was able to find a DVD of the performance of the night they approved, and I watched it I stole my roommate's laptop because I was broke and I had no laptop, and I watched it on the way over to the show. A black car picked me up. It was the first time I ever had a car service in my life. And
wow.
I watched it over there, and I just memorized it really quickly. I got out of the car onto the, Warner Brothers lot or wherever it was at the time, and the bookers ran out and said, wait, we don't even know what your set was. Do you know it? And I just did it for them, and they said, okay, great. And then I just did it, and that was it. I mean, I usually fly out my parents. I have friends for every big thing I do in my life. I have like a cavalcade of support with me, but it was on such short notice. I just went there by myself and just did it, and then thought my life would change. There's all these moments in your life where you go, oh my God, this is it. Like, people are going to see me, and it didn't change anything. I mean, the next day I was babysitting again. And then I moved out of Los Angeles, I think a month later, because I just couldn't afford it anymore. And I moved back home with my parents, and, nothing really changed. It was like, that's just like what this career has been. It's been 20 years of just like these little moments that you just, you keep thinking, oh, this is my big break. And it eventually it takes the Tom Brady roast to break you. But, on behind that was 20 years of like just struggling.
Well, you probably heard this, but for our audience that hasn't, all these years later, here's what Jay Leno had to say about your Golden Globes hosting performance to TMZ.
I thought she was great. She's professional, had really funny jokes. I mean, she did the work. Every joke worked. Every joke was funny. And she was just right on the edge.
How about that?
Speaking of celebrities, what's with you and Taylor Swift?
I mean, she's my number one. I mean, I idolize her. I'm a big fan. I've been to 22 shows in the past year and a half. It's like it's a passion of mine. I don't have kids. I don't have a family. Like, I don't really have hobbies. My hobbies are like, consuming Taylor Swift and going to her shows, yeah, that's my side of things. Her side of things is she doesn't know who I am or care. Probably. But I'm okay with that. I'm like, I'm a tried and true Swiftie. I love being a fan. I've always been kind of a fangirl throughout my life of different musicians. It's like, I'm a little on the spectrum that way, where I get kind of like obsessed with things, and I devote my like whole personality to them. And yeah, it was like last year I was on tour, constantly. And any night I wasn't on tour and that she was on tour, I would fly from whatever city I just performed in to whatever city she was in, whether it be Zurich or Indianapolis or Vancouver. And I just made it my life to like go do my tour and her tour. So
oh my gosh.
It was awesome.
Hey, Nikki Glaser, a serious thing for a second. I mean, I wasn't being facetious before. Marjorie and I have been fans of yours forever, long before Brady and long before the Golden Globes. But obviously, your relationship to the real world had to have changed after those two moments on TV. What's that like for you? And are you comfortable with it? I assume everybody recognizes you. What's that like, and how do you feel about it?
Well, it has changed. Like after the Tom Brady roast, this is what I found out about fame, because I don't think I would have been able to predict it. Like right after the Tom Brady roast, I would say for about a week, it was not a lot going on in the news. Everyone had watched the Tom Brady roast. I guess there wasn't much on that Sunday night when it aired. It seemed to be like a Super Bowl kind of event where America was watching, and I was very famous for like 4 days. I mean, like, I couldn't go anywhere. People were stopping me. Anytime I walked down the street, I felt like, oh my God, like, I can't go anywhere alone anymore. It turns into like taking selfies with everyone and having, like you can't really get places because you got to stop and like say hi to everyone. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have like a security detail because this is ridiculous. And then it completely drops off after about 5 days.
Really?
And this is what fame is now. There's so much to consume out there that, whatever is in our phones is kind of top of mind. So I was on everyone's phone, like I would literally be in line at Starbucks and I would see the person in front of me watching me.
Oh my God.
And then turn around and go, oh my God, you. So then as soon as my clip started going, kind of dissipating, then the attention dissipated and it went back to normal. It was really lovely. I really love the level of fame I'm at where it's like when people recognize me, they're really tickled by it. But I'm not someone that like immediately. I look a lot different too when I'm like not with makeup on and my hair all done. So I'm usually in a baseball cap with like my hair up, and also I live in St. Louis, Missouri, so I'm not in a place where people are expecting to see a celebrity. Yeah. So if you don't expect it, you don't really get like people don't recognize you if they're not expecting to see you, and so it's nice. You know, sometimes I'll be in Pilates class and. Afterwards, a girl will be like, "Oh my God, wait, you were there the whole time?" Like, there's little moments like that, and you know, my spray tanner girl will be spray tanning me, and you know, I'm fully naked in front of her, and you know, bent over, and she's like spraying my butt cheeks, and she's like, "My boyfriend and I are such huge fans." Like, there's moments where like I'm like, "Oh, that's so exciting for you that you get to see me naked." Like, I would love to see Taylor Swift naked. Like, that's a cool thing that I get to give you. What a nice little gift. So, but it, you know, and then the Golden Globes, like, that was like another thing. It's just very slow, but I want to stay at this level of fame forever because it's nice. You get, like, priority seating if you drop your name in the right places, but it's not like, you know, hordes of people bothering you or, like, people filming me. It's like, it's a really cozy place to be because those who know, and those who don't know me, like, don't care. Whereas I think when you're really famous, like, even people who don't like you know you, and that's when it starts to become, like, hurtful.
I would say you're really famous. I know you got to go in a minute. One of the things I loved about the roasts for a second is I loved watching, and this is from afar, Kevin Hart was really laughing at himself and was into it. Gronkowski seemed totally uncomfortable. Brady seemed like he wanted to, like, crawl in a hole. How'd your boyfriend deal with that joke?
Oh, my boyfriend, like, was the one who, when we thought about doing that joke, was, you know, I looked at him. Someone pitched an idea to me. Jimmy Carr, he's a comedian. We were at a Netflix brunch the day before the roast, and Jimmy Carr said, "I have an idea for a joke. Why don't you, like, you know, say something sincere about your boyfriend and then throw him under the bus?" And I said, "Oh, you know, my boyfriend's standing right there," and I'm like, that's funny, but I can't do that. And my boyfriend was like, "Yes, you should. That's hilarious." And so my boyfriend is amazing because his rule is that, you know, he says you can literally say anything about me, about us, as long as it's funny. That's the only rule. So, you know, if a joke bombs and I throw him under the bus, we might have an issue. You know, if I'm just being mean to be mean. But if it's for the sake of laughter, he has no problem with it. And he is so supportive and does not have an ego about it. Like, he doesn't take it personally. Sometimes I wish he would. Sometimes I'm like, I'm trying to tell you something. This isn't a joke. This is real.
Hey, Nikki Glaser.
That was hilarious what you said about you being angry about the thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to subconsciously tell you I'm upset. No, but he's got the best sense of humor and really is an ideal partner that is hard to find for a female comedian because I know that I have too thin of skin for him to ever, like, he like will tease me around the apartment and I get really upset about it. Like, it's not a two-way street with us. Like, he's a lot cooler about stuff than I am.
I think he did pretty well in this transaction,
especially with the last line to Brady. I thought that kind of took care of Brady and helped out your boyfriend big time myself.
Hey, Nikki Glaser, we can't wait to see you this weekend. The only show that is not sold out, you got to move quickly, is Sunday at 9:30. Nikki, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for calling in.
You guys, thank you for such a great interview. That was so nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and congratulations on your great career and your great talent.
Fabulous.
We've been speaking with Nikki Glaser. She has 6 shows this weekend at the Box Center Wang Theater. They're all sold out except for Sunday night. There's one at 9:30, so if you hurry up, you can probably get tickets for that last show Sunday night. Okay, after a quick break, Boston's food scene is bouncing back from years of pandemic turmoil. We're going to talk with 3 fabulous award-winning restaurateurs. Jody Adams, Garret Harker, and Jimmy Liang join us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming online at youtube.com/GB.
Ireland may soon pass a bill banning trade with Israeli settlements in the occupied territories.
And in practice, what that would mean is that if you're a supermarket here and you're stocking dates that have been produced in illegal settlements, you'll be asked to pull them from your shelves.
I'm Scott Detrow. How war in the Middle East reverberates in unlikely places. That story and all things considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware. committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And the Simmons Leadership Conference, a one-day event filled with inspiration, skill building, and networking. Thursday, March 20th, in person in Boston and online. InclusiveLeadership.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie. Again, we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back here Friday with the retired federal judge Nancy Gertner and the Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. After years of COVID hardships, Boston's food scene is starting to look a lot more like 2019. The three people standing on the stage are proof of that. James Beard award-winning Jody Adams is here. She's the co-founder and chef at restaurants like Porto, Trade, Saloniki, and the recently opened La Padrona, in addition to being a co-founder of the Hospitality Coalition, Mass Restaurants United. Garret Harker is a five-time James Beard semifinalist, owner and proprietor of Eastern Standard, Standard Italian, the cocktail bar Equal Measure, and Watertown's branch line. And you know Jimmy Liang is the founder and CEO of three food ventures, JP Fuji Group, beyond the Fuji Sushi restaurants, also the French pastry shop Nouveau Patisserie, and most recently Mason's Steakhouse in, you ready for this? In Quincy. And it's fabulous. Jody, Garret, Jimmy, it's great to see all three of us. Thanks so much for being here.
Hi, Jim. Thank you. Thanks
Well,
for having
so
me.
excited. Jim, of course, has been to every single one of your restaurants many times. I've been to at least one. I'm working my way to the other two. But you've all got new places. So let's start with you, Garret. We knew the place you had for years and years. It was a great place, Eastern Standard and Kenmore Square. What are you doing now?
Thank you. Well, for the last 3 years, I've been working on bringing Eastern Standard back. You know, we went dark. You mentioned COVID,
Yes.
Jim. It's hardship on our industry, in particular for me. I lost my Kenmore Square restaurants. But Eastern Standard is back. It's just a couple blocks from
Down
the
the
old
street.
location. It has a sister restaurant, Standard Italian, that is adjacent, as well as a cocktail bar, Equal Measure.
With the big
that-
martinis.
With the big martinis, yeah. It'll remind you of the Hawthorne, if you remember our
yes.
cocktail bar in the Hotel
What's
Commonwealth.
with the Troika deal with you? There was the Hawthorne, Island Creek, Oyster, and Eastern Standard. Now you have three more up the hill.
You know,
What's with that?
It goes back probably when Barbara and I opened B&G Oysters in the butcher shop. You know, two little storefronts.
Barbara Lynch we're talking about, yeah.
Barbara Lynch. Two little storefronts, very different guest experience, but we were able to share some infrastructure so we could have bookkeeping, accounting, HR.
Okay.
So, you know, that's not the most romantic description, but we learned a little bit about the benefit of having a few different front doors.
We'll get to romance later, Garret. Don't worry about it now.
Great.
So, Jody, tell us about La Padrona.
Well, it's amazing.
It is
And,
amazing.
It's like 2 blocks away, which is great. We opened with the intention of bringing something new, some luxury, and some just really great restaurant experience to Boston. And what we didn't know was that people would come and say, "Oh my God, we've been waiting for this restaurant. Where has it been? Boston needs this restaurant." And it makes you feel like you've walked into a different world.
It does.
People say, you know, transported to Europe or another time. And the food is amazing. Chef Emerita, our chef there, is fantastic. And Harry, who's our general manager, is like the peak of hospitality. So John, Eric, and I, my partners, have created what we didn't know would be such an enormous hit and so welcome.
It's beautiful. And now let's go to the mayor of Quincy. I mean, the de facto mayor of Quincy. Jimmy, tell us about Mason's. I mentioned I was there with my daughter on Monday night. It's
Yes.
beautiful and fabulous food. Tell us about it.
Well, thank you, Jim, for visiting Mason's. I appreciate that. Mason's is an American steakhouse that we opened back in December, the last week of December. The team. It's all about the team. The team that I put together, Kevin Long, Mike Morway, Robert Gonzalez, Ming Cho. Most restaurants I know, and first of all, I want to say Garret and Jody, so nice to meet you guys.
Oh, you haven't met before?
You guys are
No, I'm
tons of...
on my way to your steakhouse, though.
You guys are titans of industry, and I'm so honored to be standing here
does that
amongst
mean?
greatness.
There you
Really.
go.
That's a good thing, Jody, trust me. Yeah, go ahead.
So I've followed the lead. I've followed you guys all these years, but you know, I really took the lead from you guys in terms of how I wanted to do something great for the city of Quincy. We've always needed a steakhouse in the city. We've never had one, and the opportunity came up, and I was able to put a great team of chefs together, and here we are.
You know, the reason we wanted all three of you here, beyond the fact that I have been all three restaurants, and the food is fabulous, and they're also beautiful places, which really takes you away from the pain of the world, which is all we talk about
Jim
here
is quite a gourmet.
every single day. Well, you like a good restaurant too, Margaret.
I do.
The reason we wanted you here is we have a lot of restaurateurs on, and I have to say the vast majority of them in the last 2 years are talking about how they're hanging by a thread. Whether it's profit margins, not able to get workers. We had Joanne Chang here the other day with Christopher Myers, who was, we asked if there was mass deportation, what would happen to the restaurants of America. She said every restaurant would close. So starting with you, Jody, how were you able to buck the trend? I mean, you're opening, three of you, upscale, beautiful places, which I assume is risk-laden.
Well, I think it was a risk. However, I'll tell you that when we first started talking to the folks at Raffles, because it's in the Raffles Hotel, it was the middle of winter, and it was in 2020, and I think it was 2020, maybe it was 2021, I can't remember. But anyway, we were wearing masks, it was dark and gray, and there was nobody on the streets. We met on Newbury Street, and I thought, what are we doing here? Why are we talking about a restaurant, a fancy restaurant in a hotel and big restaurant? But it was the confidence of the Raffles team, but also our team, and also thinking, restaurants will never go away. They're never, ever going to go away. If you travel around the world, the first thing that pops up at, say, a hospital site where a hospital is being built in Haiti are little tiny food stands, right? So restaurants will never go away. And it just felt like we would come out of COVID and we would need something that felt like a great big hug.
Did you believe that, or you convinced yourself you had to believe that to do this? Did you really believe it?
You know what? I don't know if I believed it.
Okay,
I believe it now.
Okay, fine. So, Garret, how about you? Again, three more after being the centerpiece of Kenmore Square for so long. How about for you, bucking the trend?
Well, I mean, it's a reality that none of us are in this business for the financial reward. That's just not going to come typically. We do it because we love it. There was so much goodwill built up in the brand Eastern Standard that, at the end of the day, lying in bed thinking about it going away, that didn't sit right with me. I thought there was still a future to be had. The important thing, like Jody's saying, is that there's alignment between, the economic development happening around any institutional forces, like we have the Red Sox, we have Boston University, we have to layer in, the revenue and the business to be able to perform under this climate.
And Jimmy, you're a little bit younger than the rest of us here, so you might look at this differently coming into the business early in your career right now.
Right. So I started Fuji's back in '98, and if you go back to going all the way back to '98, Fuji's weathered a few recessions.
Oh, you're like 12 years old in 98? How old were you in 1998?
98, I was 18.
Oh my God. Go ahead.
So
now he is younger.
Go ahead.
Just a wee bit. That's right.
But for a lot of what I do, so once COVID hit, we were actually one of the first stores to close down, because I thought that we needed to protect our staff. I've always understood that human capital it's a big thing in our food business, and so we have to protect our people, our assets, and so we were one of the first ones to close. But after that, it was a lot of creativity in terms of bringing people back, cross-training them, and now we have to be creative about probably running a leaner schedule, but never trying to. We would never try to compromise on our food quality. But there's a lot of creativity that needs to go into it. I'm sure Garret and Jody knows about that in terms of trying to be flexible. during hard times.
We're talking to, that's the voice of Jimmy Liang, whose latest is Mason Steakhouse in Quincy. Jody Adams, whose latest is La Padrona at the Raffles, which Christopher Muther told us is the greatest new hotel in Boston. He just loved it from the Globe.
The flower
And
arrangements.
3 new restaurants, including Eastern Standard and Standard Italian, and Equal Measure up on Beacon Street. Garret Harker.
You know, Garret, Jim mentioned that Joanne Chang, Christopher Meyer were here, and she's, of course, Flower Bakery and Myers and Chang, the restaurant. They talked about the impact of, it is possible, if it happens, this mass deportation, not of people that have committed crimes, but people that came over into the country and don't have all their papers in order. She thought it could shut down the restaurant business because a lot of the back-of-the-house people are people that are getting entry-level jobs. Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. I mean, look at the start of COVID, who came to work, when we were trying to feed all of our community. They were the ones that, they didn't have the ways and means to fall back on any benefit programs. They were the first ones in the kitchen to help us feed people. Mm-hmm. If that went away, who's going to do the work? Restaurants don't exist in the way that you and I think of them.
Jody, you're nodding your head in agreement. Why are we asked this to Myers and Chang? Why isn't the restaurant world more vocal nationally in terms of what this? It isn't happening yet, but the threat of mass deportation for a lot of people is as bad as the reality would be.
Well, there is a lot of conversation among our peers in all of the industry groups, Mass Restaurants Association, National Restaurant Association, Mass Restaurants United, the Independent Restaurant Organization. There is a lot of conversation, there's a lot of training, there's a lot of preparation. And there was a huge, panic a few weeks ago. And I think we're all waiting to see, exactly what happened. But people are preparing. The thing is that there's a reality about the law that we have to deal with. And if the government chooses to do this, it will have a detrimental impact, not just on restaurants, but on all service industries, on hospitals, at the airport, everywhere, farms, So it would be a massively destructive decision to make. So let's just hope that, in fact, the people that are being detained are the people that should be detained, and they leave everybody else alone. That's.
In a second, we're going to get to.
Maybe I'm being naive, but.
Well, I hope you're right. We're going to get to the happy plate because you all bought food in a couple of seconds.
I know. Look
what
at
are
this.
the other issues other than the whole question of undocumented staff? What are the other issues you guys are confronting the restaurant industry in 2025, Jimmy?
It's really just the high cost of operation. Food's gone up, labor's gone up, and when those things goes up, it doesn't really come down. So again, we have to find new ways of managing our businesses, whether it's through a smaller menu or running a tighter ship by running leaner in terms of labor. So those are things that we're constantly trying to
You
look
raising
at.
chickens at your house out there in Quincy so
Yeah.
you can afford to
Yeah,
have
what
eggs
about the
on your
eggs?
menu?
Every place I go, the eggs are gone. You have to
It
it's
is
like getting toilet
ridiculous.
paper during COVID, right? You
Yeah.
have to go to store to store to store.
Yep.
What are you
yep.
doing to get your eggs? We should have asked that, Jim.
I mean,
Paying more.
Pay more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pay more.
Okay, can we talk?
Let's talk about the food. That's a good
Go
idea.
ahead, Jimmy. What'd you bring here?
I brought sushi from Fuji, and I brought
Amazing.
pastries and croissants from Nibu.
Yeah, you don't think it's somebody doing the steakhouse and the sushi doing the pastry, so you're all over the place here.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I told you guys last time, but the last time I was on, I actually retired for a little while, and it was after COVID, and it was 3 months. That was the length of my retirement, and well, I had nothing to do, so I came back out, and I was just like, you know what, I really want to do something different. I really want to do something special. Rob Gonzalez, great chef. I met him when he was the head chef at Bistro du Midi. He came into my restaurant one night. Bottom line was that was 8 years ago. Rob waited 8 years for me to do something with me, and I couldn't be more than happier. And with the steakhouse, I've always loved steakhouses. I've always loved steaks, pastas. I've loved all of it. So I think everything that I'm doing right now, one, it provides a need for the city of Quincy because those are the things that we're lacking in Quincy. And two, I love it.
What'd you bring, Jody?
So first, I just want to say,
sure.
I live in Dorchester, and Quincy is our go-to. So
Thank you,
we
Jody.
will be there soon.
Thank you, Jody.
What do you have?
I have, these are all from La Padrona, except for these amazing cookies that come from Saloniki, which is on Newbury Street, as you know, and
And in Central
various
Square
places.
in Cambridge, thank you.
These are our Dubai chocolate cookies. So I don't know if you've talked about Dubai chocolate.
No.
No.
Oh my God,
No.
it's this trend, it's this Instagram trend, started by a woman who was pregnant and had cravings for a chocolate bar, and she had a company. She made this chocolate bar, which is milk chocolate filled with pistachio cream and crispy kataifi.
Ooh.
So that's what we have done here, is make a chocolate chip cookie and put that inside.
Can we see that, please?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Thank you.
They're going like hotcakes.
Thank
you.
So to speak.
And then from La Padrona, an amazing chocolate cake.
Oh, my God.
This is our cacio e pepe focaccia that Kimberly makes, these two things, and then some roasted marsala carrots, and then a very traditional antipasti plate with prosciutto and figs and stracciatella.
So, Garret, would you screw us on this?
I should have gone. Yeah, I should have gone first.
You should have gone bigger.
Then it would have built up a little bit. I got up early for you, Marjorie. And,
thank you.
And
thank
instructed my chef to make this lasagna for you.
Oh, my
you
God.
did? Oh.
It's
Yeah.
great. I was already eating it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was already eating it. My favorite thing in the world.
The challenge in February is I figured what was something that would retain a little bit of heat by
very
the time
nice.
we got over here.
It has retained- it has
that's
retained
a
heat.
classic lasagna bolognese
Yep.
on the menu. It's standard Italian.
Okay, so since I do like a martini from time to time, what's so great about your martinis? They're just bigger? They're big glasses.
My long
I don't like
time-
the trend of people putting them in weird glasses.
No coupe glasses.
Yeah, we don't like those.
We don't like that.
No, we don't.
V-shaped.
Yeah.
I've worked with Jackson Cannon, who's our beverage expert for 20 years now. I hired him at the original Eastern Standard. And while he's, as innovative as anyone, for standard Italian, we just leaned into like the classic martini preparation. So you get the little sidecar that sits in ice.
I
It's
love
just,
that.
Yeah, it's right down the middle.
Yeah, I love that.
Did I
because
have
of
the
course then
whiskey-
it keeps it cold, right?
Was
Keeps
the
it
whiskey
cold.
smash at your joint? Is that at Eastern
Very
Standard?
good, Jim.
It's one of the
Yeah.
best drinks I ever had, and I'm not a big cocktail person. It's spectacular. And by the way, this is ridiculous.
Isn't that cookie
This
amazing?
Dubai, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
We only have a couple minutes left. And one of the other reasons we wanted to hear is I am stunned. I've had this discussion with most of you about how much community work restaurateurs like you guys do and how important it is to you. So we only have a short period of time, but can we get online a little bit and tell us a little bit, not humbly, honestly, what you do in your community and why you do it. Jimmy, starting with you.
So the last time I checked, which was probably about 5 years ago, I had one of my assistants put together a list of people that I work with, and that list exceeded over 80. So since then, I'm sure that number has grown, but my grandmother used to teach me when I was a kid. I was raised by my grandmother, and my grandma would always say to me, son, if you leave a place that you found just even a little bit better, you're going to do fine in life. And that's what I took from her, and I took it to heart. And the first time I did anything for the community was I was 19 years old. This little girl comes in, and she's asking me to make a donation to the local volleyball booster club. And that was it.
That's great.
And that's how it started. And now I work with probably over at least 100 different organizations every year. But it's really important for me to give back to the community, to try to help out as much as we can, because I think a good community, it's what's needed for good families, good businesses, everything.
When you mentioned your grandmother, I just want to quickly say, you were on a couple times ago with Tracy Chang, who's a good friend of mine who runs Bagu. You didn't know you knew each other.
Nope.
And it turned out when you were a little boy, you were driving her grandmother
Yes, I
around,
was.
who owned Tokyo and Fresh Fun, which was a fabulous
so
restaurant.
wild.
Tell us the story about the woman that was very sick with cancer and was at the wedding shower.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it was one of our regulars. I'm going to get a little choked up, but she went through a real battle. When her friends reached out and said, she doesn't go out, she doesn't want to be around people, she can't eat food in the way that she always enjoyed it. We created a menu of pureed foods that she could enjoy with her friends. She's since passed, but it was when it comes to hospitality, it was one of those moments like we were all so proud to be able to do something like that.
That was a very moving
I also
story.
read a quote from you, Garret. You said, first and foremost, we're part of the neighborhood. You said this years ago. What does that mean?
I think, restaurant is a reflection of the community around you. It's an opportunity for, us to look beyond our four walls and help lift things up. I forgot when I was dark at Eastern Standard, how much we were connected to the folks around us. We just reconnected with Fenway High School. We hold etiquette classes for the kids coming up. I mean, restaurants are, a reflection of all of us in a lot of ways.
And Jody Adams, you have elevated community work to an art form.
And mentoring.
You really, give us a little bit. And again, no humility for 1 minute. Can you do that?
I'll start with, I'm really excited that I've been invited by Partners in Health to go to Rwanda and work with the culinary team at the hospital in Butero. So that I've worked with the team in the kitchen for the university and now in the hospital, which was the last request that Paul Farmer made to me. So I think, giving is, I will not be humble because I can quote this guy. The Dalai Lama says the path to happiness, right? I mean, giving is just an amazing thing to be able to do and do it with an open heart and to do it for the right reasons. And when, we've been talking about COVID, when all of us closed our restaurants on whatever that day was in March and said, holy shit, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about all of these people that work for us, this community of people out in the world who depend on us for social connection, and what are we going to do with the food? So a lot of us did different kinds of things, and one of the things that we did was to, in the restaurant community, form Massachusetts Restaurants United to advocate for independent restaurants that didn't have big pockets and didn't know how to navigate all of those grants and things that were going to come our way. And then we all started cooking, having our team cook for frontline hospital workers and out-of-work restaurant workers and things like that. And so from the tiniest little thing that you can do will have a huge impact. And, I think of myself as being taught by just the people around me, and it's the best thing that we can do in terms of community.
By the way, we started today's show by asking people how they're enduring the nightmares on the federal and international front, and this helped in a huge, not only what you do inside your businesses, but what you do in the world.
And I just want to quote one person who's no longer with us, and I think if we remember this, those of us in the food industry have to remember Jasper White's words. Do you know what they were?
No.
What? Food is love.
Yeah. Oh, food is love.
And, we make love with you every day.
Well, we're making love right now then. It's great to see all three of you. Your restaurants are not only beautiful and the food's great, and we should have said the people who provide service in all three places, are 5 places, are spectacular. So congratulations on that. Thanks for your generosity and thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
It's been great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We have been speaking with chefs Jody Adams from, among other things, La Padrona in the Back Bay, Garret Harker from, among other things, Eastern Standard in Fenway, and Jimmy Liang from, among other things, Mason's Steakhouse in Quincy. All three of them have many restaurants, and you would be really missing out if you don't check them out yourself. After a quick break, we've got 2 more things to cover before Henry Santoro hits the airwaves. We'll see if we can make that work. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Americans spend $100 billion on state lotteries each year, mostly on scratch tickets. And it all started with one slip of paper in Massachusetts.
It says, using edge of coin, rub square spot at right, and a number appears.
I'm Ian Koss, the host of Scratch and Win, a new podcast about how the scratcher sparked a gambling revolution.
We knew we had the world by the tail.
Listen to Scratch and Win wherever you get podcasts.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Huntington Theater. The Boston Family You Fought cycle continues in The Grove, playing now at the Huntington Calderwood. A young queer daughter of Nigerian immigrants comes into herself. Tickets at huntingtontheater.org. And the Skating Club of Boston, presenting the ISU World Figure Skating Championships with over 300 athletes competing at TD Garden March 25th through 30th for the title of World Champion. Tickets at isuworlds2025.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Former federal judge Nancy Gertner joins us here on Friday. It's time now for two more things. This is a segment where Marjorie and I sort of, pontificate a little bit about something that didn't fit in elsewhere in the show. What's your one more thing, Marjorie?
Well, we had a text earlier in the day that someone that was very depressed about the situation in the United States of America right now, and they were saying, well, they could look forward to being hit by the asteroid in 7 years, and they wouldn't have to worry about anything anymore. Well, I don't think that's probably going to happen. We still have a 97% chance of missing this asteroid, which is, it's not that big. It's about the size of a football field.
Oh, no, it's not bad.
But it has, the risk has gone up, Jim, from, it was started at 1, then it came to 2, and now it's at 3.1%. Not enough for a mass extinction, but it could be.
It's really comforting
so
the way you're presenting
the guy
this.
that was texted before is saying he thought it was going to solve his problems. Maybe not mass extinction, but it could take out an entire city. And it reminds me of that movie, the movie about looking up with Leonardo DiCaprio, Who's Looking Up, or whatever it is. That, it's another thing on the horizon to think about. Will we go out by an asteroid explosion?
Well, that's really a nice topic for the day. No, really lifted everybody's spirits. I'm going to talk about something that was brought to my attention by 4 of my friends have contacted me in last week about their electric bills. You know about this?
Oh, yes.
Bruce Moll, who used to be at the Globe and then went to Commonwealth Magazine, wrote a piece in the Globe the other day, and I'm going to basically draw this all from him. Electric bills have gotten bigger, way bigger, and it's not because you're using more electricity. It's because the cost of Beacon Hill policy initiatives that you pay for on your bill have tripled over the last decade. Now here, the increases fund really important things. I hope you think that, unless you're president. Renewable energy, energy efficiency, EV infrastructure, and solar. But the point that I will make editorially that Bruce touches upon, if there's such important initiatives, why does the legislature, which advanced them, not include them in the state budget, but does include them in your electric bill? Well, the answer is easy. Because they can hide them in your electric bill, but not in the state budget, where to fund them, they might actually have to be honest with the people and say, we have to raise your taxes. Beacon Hill is the place where transparency goes to die. Again and again, they do whatever they can to hide what they do from the people they work for. That is you, and this is just the latest pathetic example. So if you are sad about your electric bill, even though, again, the causes, all of these policy things are important and good, I would suggest you call your legislator. What's the number?
617-722-2000. You'll get a person, you can ask them. You get asked a state rep or state senator, and they'll tell you if you don't know.
Even if you just give address, even if you don't know.
Yeah, they'll say, if you don't know who your state rep or state senator is, you say where you live, and they'll tell you where to go.
And I hope you'll tell your legislator or their staff person you support the policies, assuming you do. I hope you do. You believe in affecting climate change, but at the same time, you want them to be transparent and honest about how you fund them.
This is not exactly the same thing, but it comes under the umbrella, I suppose, of unfunded mandates, where the state demands that you do something, but they don't pay you. And the great example, and this is part of the reason people were so upset about charter schools, if a kid leaves a public school to go to a charter school, the state's supposed to reimburse the public school that lost that student, but they don't do it fully. And you look at the government with reimbursements on things like Medicare and Medicaid, it's the same problem. They don't reimburse fully, and so the organizations that are dispersing that care or that education get short shrift. It's not just the federal government does it too.
So we agree.
We do agree. Yes, we do.
Thank you. A little more constructive than asteroid talk, I would argue, but it's in the opinion of the.
Okay. After the new news, we're going to talk with Roger Brown and his wonderful wife about. This is a weird.
She has a name, by the way. Do you know that?
I know.
Linda Mason is her name.
Linda Mason. I'm not going to read this because
Linda Mason and her husband. What's his name? Who ran Berklee?
Who ran Berklee. Started Bright Horizons, a wonderful daycare center. Spent a lot of time doing good work in other countries all around the world, Cambodia, Africa.
GBH, unlock all NPR Plus podcasts, like the Sunday Puzzle podcast, and enjoy exclusive perks like early access and bonus episodes from some of your favorite shows. Learn more at gbh.org/NPR Plus.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst, the Commonwealth's flagship public university. You can learn more about research, innovation, and economic impact for the Commonwealth at umass.edu. And Lawrence General Hospital, now united with Holy Family Hospital to help build a robust regional healthcare system defined by a shared commitment to patient-centered care and medical excellence. More at lawrencegeneral.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
67, a Delta Airlines plane went belly up Monday after a flight from St. Paul to Toronto. Plus, 100
employees at the country's top intelligence agencies. The employees said they were being let go as part of President Trump's executive order to end diversity programs. Here's NPR's Greg Myrie.
U.S. District Judge Anthony Tringa in Alexandria, Virginia, said he wanted further clarification in the case. He ordered the CIA and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence to keep the 11 employees on paid administrative leave for now. The lawyer for the 11 called the attempt to fire them arbitrary and capricious. The workers are identified with pseudonyms, and there's no word on the positions they hold. The judge ordered another hearing for next Monday. According to reports, dozens of employees in the intelligence community face dismissal over Trump's order to end DEI programs throughout the government. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
A confirmation hearing's underway for another Trump cabinet post, Secretary of Labor. Republican former Congresswoman GOP pushback for her pro-union protection support, but she told the Republican-led committee that if confirmed, she will implement President Trump's policy vision. Lawyers for Brazil's former president express outrage and shock over charges the ex-far-right leader conspired to overthrow the government. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports the country's top prosecutor
ordering arrests and demanding removal of social media posts he deemed anti-democratic. President Trump's media company filed suit against the Brazilian justice in a Florida court this week. The suit alleges illegal censoring of conservative posts on social media. Carrie Kahn, NPR News, Rio de Janeiro.
U.S. stocks are mixed this hour. The Dow is down 155 points. This is NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Opponents of the White Stadium project in Boston's Franklin Park held a rally today to protest the old stadium's demolition. The city is planning to revamp the facility and turn it into a hub for Boston Public School athletics and as a home for Boston's incoming National Women's Soccer League team. But some residents say the project is a sign of ongoing gentrification. Rennie Walsh was at today's protest near the demolition site. She says she's worried the new stadium will lead to higher property value and elder services. 26 chilly degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Subaru, who, along with its retailers, is partnering with Operation Warm to provide more than 130,000 children in need with brand new necessities like coats, shoes, and socks. Subaru, more than a car company.
Mr. Rowdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News and broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. On Friday, we're going to be back here at the library with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, who's going to fill us in on all the legal suits and controversies surrounding the new president, Donald Trump. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. It's time now for our third installment of a new feature, How Do You Two Know Each Other? It was Myers and Chang last week, the week before the...
Did you see him across the room and say, there's my guy?
He was pretty buff and handsome.
What'd you say then? Is that what you said then?
No.
Oh, sorry.
And today, too.
Okay.
Well, I was actually engaged at the time to someone else.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yes.
Did not know
no,
that.
No, not kidding.
I love it.
I had been living in Paris for a few years, engaged to a
studying
wonderful...
Rachmaninoff, your classical pianist.
Yeah, studied at the Rachmaninoff Conservatory and came back, realized I wasn't going to be a star, classical concert pianist, came back to business school, engaged to this wonderful man, Francois. But in my last semester of business school, that was when the Vietnamese invaded Cambodia, ousted Khmer Rouge, and hundreds of thousands of Cambodians fled to the border of Thailand. And it was in the news every day. And I was very moved by the crisis, as were many, many people. And I'd heard of these two guys, Roger Brown and Neil Kenny Geyer, who thought that they had this idea to go to...
I distinctly remember her telling me that she, in college, took calculus because she knew she could make an easy A. And I thought,
That's a pretty good line. I like that.
I like that. And then we went off and did this work together. And, of course, she'd been living in Paris. She was extremely fashionable. And let's just say I was at the other extreme. And I couldn't imagine her in a refugee camp. And then, lo and behold, a few months later, we were out on the border of Thailand and Cambodia.
The Khmer Rouge, and we were really moved by
I think Linda just wanted to spend the next year with me.
Get away from Francois. I know what you mean.
Poor Francois.
We're still friends. Francois.
But I'm serious. What was that like, Roger Brown?
It was stunning and difficult. I had spent a year being a school teacher in a small village in western Kenya that was maybe the most idyllic year of my life. And somehow I thought living in a war zone in Southeast Asia was going to be like that. It was difficult, and like a couple of weeks after we got there, the Vietnamese invaded, and the camps were being shelled, and people were being killed, and there were landmines blowing up everywhere. And we were kids, in retrospect, trying to make sense of it all and trying to do something useful. So we learned a lot. I think we contributed a little bit, but it's where our relationship was really cemented.
In addition to your relationship, what impact did that experience as relatively young people, Linda, have on your work?
When we came back to the States after the Sudan, we wanted, the program in the Sudan was entrepreneurial. We were hired by Save the Children to create a countrywide program. And when we came back to the States, we wanted to create something in our own country that also could make a difference in children's lives.
Was that what the genesis of Bright Horizons? Really?
You know, before we get to Bright Horizons, so I can't help thinking, we're hearing now about USAID being basically shut down. You worked with children who were, I don't know, starving, maybe too strong a word, but it sounds to me. So
the UN did a study of the program we created in Sudan, and it concluded that there were 30,000 people alive who wouldn't have been otherwise.
Wow.
Now, it's a tough part of the world, and much of what we did kind of got washed away by bad governance and civil war and other problems. But that kind of work, you definitely feel like, it's like the parable of the throwing the starfish back in the ocean. You definitely feel like you've helped some people you can point to and personally. But it's very powerful work, it's very draining work, and there are some heroes out there doing it. I've always felt like when you get on airplanes and they say thank you to the veterans for your service, they should say people working in refugee camps, thank you for your service, because it's hard work. And it's heartbreaking to think that as a nation we're going to retreat from helping people who are on the brink of starvation or facing natural disasters. And I just think of the fires in LA. People all over the world sent firemen to help us. Are we going to stop helping other people?
Yeah, that's a very good
point. Mercy Corps, I mentioned in the introduction. Tell us, for those who don't know, what does Mercy Corps do?
Yeah, Mercy Corps specializes in working in what we call the world's toughest places. So places that are in war or famine or financial collapse. So sort of the last mile of difficulties. And Mercy Corps goes in there with an emergency SWAT team and immediately can set up food and sanitation and housing, temporary housing. But right from the beginning also starts development programs. So starts seeding small entrepreneurial efforts so that, we see our role as a way to help people pull themselves out of poverty and change the direction.
So explain, when we've talked a lot, but not with your experiences, about this USAID decapitation, for lack of a better word. Why should people here, particularly people who are struggling, care about people who are struggling in some other part of the world, Linda?
Yeah, well, it's sort of that proverb, anyone struggling somewhere affects people struggling everywhere. And it's sort of this basic core of humanity of reaching out to people in need. And, we see the ripple effects in, in places like Somalia and Congo and Afghanistan. There is such a draw of young people to extremist movements. But if you could come in with programs funded like from AID, USAID, and other places, Mercy Corps, that if you could give them economic opportunities and education opportunities, there's less of a draw to extremist movements.
And you've worked in Gaza and the West Bank, too.
A lot, yeah, I've been a lot.
So when you hear this Riviera on the in the Middle East, what do you think when you hear those words?
It is such a total heartbreak. You know, I wake up every day really so dismayed what's happening there. It's sort of this problem there. You know, two truths can exist at the same time, and these two peoples living side by side are struggling to, you know, live in peace. It's just a total heartbreak. I have to say, I'm a born optimist, but I don't see, honestly, an optimistic solution there.
We're talking with Linda Mason and Roger Brown. Let's get back to Bright Horizons, because as I read about it and listened to podcasts about it, you looked at this differently. You were not opening up your standard child care center. You were looking at it as more of an entrepreneurial kind of thing. Explain that, Roger.
Well, I think we felt like from the earlier work we did, if you can have some impact on children and their education, that's the strongest leverage point in building a better world. But also, we were aware that if you're working parents and you don't have a good child care solution, it's hard to work. And we were aware that companies had difficulty retaining key people, and if they had good child care, maybe all three of those could happen. The child could get a good education, the parents could be productive at work, and the organization would be better off to the extent it'd be willing to help pay for that, and then we could pay teachers better. So it felt like a virtuous circle of enlisting capitalism in a worthy cause. And so we always had this aspiration of trying to get the employer sector, hospitals, universities, corporations, to support childcare. And it was like 5 or 6 very difficult years when we first met you.
Yeah.
And then it started happening. There was a flywheel effect, and I think the company now employs 30,000 people all over the world. Just opened another child care center in India.
Oh my gosh. What's
By the way,
work site?
wait. You should be a little transparent here and explain your initial connection with this operation many years ago.
The short story is I was in California with my then husband and my daughter, and I came back and I couldn't find any childcare openings. And so I wrote a tearjerker column in the Herald about my terrible plight. And Roger called me up and said, I've got a space. And I rushed over to Kendall Square in Cambridge, and I thought, oh my God, this is heaven, this is great. I mean, you had great teachers, a beautiful place. It was Star driving rush hour traffic every day. I about had a nervous breakdown every day driving over there at 5 o'clock. But that was it. And my daughter was there from the time she was 2 to the time she went to kindergarten at 5 years old. And
In fact, our 2 daughters were there together.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you may not remember, but I saw you there a lot. I saw one of Frank Bellatti's kids was there.
Yep.
So it was heaven.
Yeah, a lot of people who provide daycare for, by the way, Frank did.
That's right.
A lot of kids. Go ahead.
I was speaking of the restaurateurs you had on. The people who ran the Daily Catch had their children there.
Is that right?
And they would have squid ink pasta for lunch instead of peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, but
Linda,
it was new.
I'm sorry.
It was very new, that whole concept.
One of the things Marjorie wrote about, because I actually remember the columns, is you paid your people pretty decently. And we've talked in the past with people in the childcare industry who talk about how painfully horrible the salaries are, that they can't live, they need second jobs, the turnover is immense. How'd you pull that off?
Yeah, well, that's where the employer support comes in. And, you know, when we started Bright Horizons, it was actually not that different from the refugee relief work we did, in that when you think of relief workers, they do the work because of the passion for what they're doing. And the same with childcare teachers. They're the most compassionate, wonderful people. But it was a very unprofessional field. Most centers were small mom-and-pop centers with no room to grow and develop. So our objective was to set up a very professional organization where you could come in as an assistant teacher and grow and become a teacher, director, regional manager, and have benefits, have ongoing education. We have a Bright Horizons University from day one. You can sign up with we pay all expenses,
Really?
including books and tutoring, and get a degree.
It's fabulous.
And you also have the Horizons for Homeless.
Yes. Yeah, we
families.
started that soon after Bright Horizons. We hid it from our board because we started Bright Horizons and New England immediately sank into a recession. This was the late 80s. And so we were really struggling at Bright Horizons. But during that time, there was a new category of homeless population of mothers of young children that were getting no services. And we felt, we have to do something about this category. So we kind of pulled together family and friends and hired someone and created Horizons for Homeless Children and hid it from our board of directors who thought we were kind of too idealistic to begin with.
When we told one of the board members who was a big investor that we had started a nonprofit, he said, "You're already running a nonprofit."
That's
Good
right.
line.
Why not one more?
So can we stay on this one? Another unanswerable question, sort of like why are we abandoning the most vulnerable people in the world when it's done so many good things for us, not to mention for them under USAID. I think when it comes to government assistance to families raising children and their health care, we are either last amongst Western nations or close to last. Starting with you, Roger, why don't we get it? Particularly, remember when the child tax credit happened and then one of the original Biden things, poverty rate for kids was reduced 50% right away, and of course, most of that disappeared. Why don't we get that the benefit, I don't mean the psychic benefit, I mean the real world benefit is greater than the expenditure here? Thank you. That's exactly
You started by saying the unanswerable questions. I will say, one thing Linda and I were talking about in anticipation of this is you might be able to tell I did not grow up in South Boston.
Yes.
I grew up much further south.
You're a Georgia boy.
I'm from Georgia.
That's right.
And
where I understand you were the star of Junior and the Jailbirds, your 11-year-old band.
How do you know about Junior and the Jailbirds?
We know everything.
I read about Junior and the Jailbirds.
Junior and the Jailbirds had two songs we knew. One was the Ballad of the Green Beret, and the other was Blowing in the Wind.
That's right.
But you were going to say, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I saying?
You were talking about growing up in the South.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, it's such a blessing to live in Boston where there at least is an assumption that education is a good thing and where teachers could be paid better, but they're paid better than they are where I came from. Mm-hmm. And my school, 7 of my high school teachers were football coaches. We were very good at football, but not so good at education. And so, Linda's from a small town in upstate New York. So part of the blessing of Massachusetts and Boston is at least a set of shared assumptions that education and investing in health is a good thing.
How about, even though, Linda, for you, even though all the evidence is there, again, as I said to your husband, the benefit grossly outweighs the expenditure, why do our legislators not get it? I don't mean here, I mean in Washington, and the legislatures, the parliaments of so many Western nations totally get it.
Yeah, we're way behind most industrialized countries in the way we treat children and families. And, that's another reason why I'm so proud to live in Massachusetts, where we understand just the critical importance of prenatal to 5 and the direction of a life. And I think, to answer your question, Jim, I think most policymakers are very short-term oriented, but the investment in early childhood yields better incomes, better taxpayers, less incarceration.
Lower health care costs down the road, all those things. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this podcast that you both did with two women that work at Bright Horizons. They work at Bright Horizons, right? The 2 women. And because you've got 3 children of your own, and you obviously have had big time careers, and you talk about being tiger parents to your oldest girl, but I think a lot of parents still debate this now, laissez-faire parents like probably most of us had, or the helicopter parents, which we all make fun of. Now there's the gentle parenting trend. But talk about what you've learned from your own parenting and from all these kids through Bright Horizons about if you're some hard-driving person, how you do it.
Yeah, asked that question a lot while we were raised when our children were little. Like, how can you be a really great, particularly working parent? I didn't have the answers, so I went and interviewed 100 mothers of different socioeconomic levels and lifestyles, and wrote this book.
I wrote a book,
The
Working Mother's Guide to Life.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I learned, Marjorie, was that there's no one right way. I discovered there are different categories of parenting. I had, cute little names for them: the camp counselor, the strategic planner, the earth mother. But, I think you have to be true to yourself, and children need love and they need boundaries and limits.
Yeah.
And there are many ways to do that effectively.
Okay, this is a hell of a transition. Can we go back to the jailbirds for a second, whatever they were called? Okay, so we know you have a musical background before you met Roger and dumped Francois, or whatever you did there. You classical piano in Paris, you were training. We have a little song we'd like to play. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about it, Roger. Here's a song that wound up on the 2024 Grammy-nominated Del McCoury Band album, Songs of Love and Life. This is the masterfully penned Working for the WPA. Here it is.
Never did such a long, hard shift as working for the WPA. Spanning gaps on the topo maps, working for the WPA. Feisting ledge and breaking stones, swinging a sledge and shaking bones. Out in the sun all day, working for the WPA.
You ever heard that song before?
I have.
What do you know about
billions of times.
What do you know about it?
Even Linda's heard it billions of times. So I co-wrote that song with a beautiful songwriter named Mark Simos, who teaches at Berklee and has written for Alison Krauss and a bunch of people. And it's the story of my grandfather who abandoned his family. And I was trying to imagine what he would say to me.
Yeah.
So in the song, he says to me, I wasn't a very good man, but when I worked on the Blue Ridge Parkway, that was the highlight of my life. And so Mark sent it off to Del McCoury, and he dropped him a note a month later and said, "Did you get the song?" They said, "We loved it. We've already recorded it."
Fabulous.
Wow.
And Del's own father worked for the WPA. And I think in terms of timeliness, we all look back and say, wasn't the WPA a good idea, helping people who needed help in a dark time? So I think it's got, even though it's not preachy, it's got a little bit of timeliness.
Well, we mentioned before the Salt Lick Incubator, and we've had several people, and we just had that kid a couple of weeks ago that came in. He was from the South somewhere.
Kyle Ray from Kentucky.
Yes.
And we had
you were
Tiny
here that
Habits
day
even before we
with his
knew
mother.
that they were yours, actually.
Yeah. It's a great concept. So for people who haven't heard about it, tell us.
Salt Lick Incubator is a nonprofit that's helping young emerging artists in the sort of the singer-songwriter, Americana, neo-soul, R&B space launch their careers. And Kyle Ray is one of them. He is a monster talent, and you're going to hear a lot more from him. But we're working with a bunch of people. You had Tiny Habits on here.
Yes.
Fabulous.
You had this young man, Kieran Rhodes, who's just got a song in a Netflix show and a Disney show. And we've got a bunch of great artists coming along. You can go to our website, saltlickincubator.org.
And it helps them with the business part too, right? Because you can be a great musician or songwriter and have no idea how to market yourself.
We're trying to help them with the whole potpourri, from great songwriting to great performances to media to legal stuff, legal issues, what kind of deals to strike. But I would say the main thing we're doing is giving them an enthusiastic dose of cheerleading. Like, you can do this. We're with you. We're behind you. Go out there and make it happen.
Every act you've forwarded us has been great. Okay, the primary reason we do these segments, we've done 3 of them so far, Linda Mason, is to introduce people a little more deeply to people who are doing really important things in our community who they might not know a lot about. But the secondary reason is to talk about how the relationship between the guests affected both their work together and their separate work in good or bad ways. Let's start with you. What's the relationship with him meant to you in your cooperative things like Bright Horizons and in your individual efforts out there in the world?
Sure. Well, I think, particularly, we created 3 organizations together. The countrywide program in the Sudan for Save the Children, Bright Horizons and Horizons for Homeless Children, and particularly building Bright Horizons, which we went through many years of really tough struggle before it hit its stride. And to be partners in creating something where you could celebrate together and commiserate together makes a big difference. And, we'd have these long, stressful days, and then we'd come home and have dinner and a glass of wine, and we could talk it all through and laugh, and there was always that unconditional support for each other. When we've done separate things, Roger is my greatest supporter and advocate and strategic partner, and I hope I'm the same to him. He actually reports to me at Salt Lick.
I know that.
I'm on the board.
We know that.
And so I think we've really developed a way to be real supporters and help each other both together when we do our separate stuff.
Don't just say I agree with everything she said. Add something to this conversation, Roger Brown.
Here's what I'd say about Linda Mason. She can meet with a refugee in Darfur whose home has just been burned down, and then she can go meet with an ambassador or a prime minister or a president. She can meet with a community activist or with a master of the universe who's running a multi-billion-dollar company and relate to them all. And then on boards, especially when she chairs boards, she's able to bring them together, keep the masters of the universe from dominating, empower the people who might not normally say anything, and lead that organization to better decisions and better cohesion.
Masters of the universe meaning men.
Usually.
Yes, okay. And how does she do that? I want to hear from you. How does she do that?
She had this technique with me where if I was talking too much, she'd pull on her ear.
Oh, you know what? And
Don't start pulling on your ear, Marjorie.
And
Okay.
I've actually heard that works really well in radio studios.
Yeah, boy, a new idea.
Thank you very
Usually
very
I have
much.
to wave my arms like at the air traffic controller, make it be more subtle.
Hey, before you go, Linda Mason, I mentioned before when you were chair of the Boston Foundation Board, you hired Lee, you and your committee, whatever. Why'd you hire Lee?
Oh my God. Lee is an extraordinary leader in a couple of ways. He has a combination of some characteristics that are really rare in leaders, and that, as you know, he's incredibly humble. He's listens. He doesn't have to dominate the room. So he invites people in. People trust him. But he's also incredibly strategic and ambitious and has audacious goals, and that's a very unusual combination. He's just done an incredible job.
One last question about him, because I hadn't thought of this till just now. Last time he was here, I was asking him a question. I was going on for a while. He pulled his right ear. Do you have any idea what that meant? I was trying to. It's a thrill to have you both, by the way. Thanks for all your incredible work.
Yeah,
and we hope
thank you
come
so
back
much.
again.
Thank you so much, and thank you for creating a place that's allowed so many kids to have such joyful childhoods.
Including Marjorie.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
you.
Great to see
We
you
have
both.
been talking with Linda Mason. She's former chair of Mercy Corps, chair emerita at the Boston Foundation, a board member of a number of cultural institutions, including Mass MoCA, the MFA, Embrace Boston, and her husband, Salt Lick Incubator, whose artist, as we said, we've had on the show any numbers of times. Roger's former president of Berklee College and founder of the Salt Lick Incubator. And of course, they created Bright Horizons and Horizons for Homeless Kids. Together, they are also married with 3 grown children. Thank you again so much for being with us. Okay, up next, are you rethinking air travel after the past few months of crashes and chaos on planes? Or are you forging ahead with any and all plans to get as far away from the United States as possible? And how comfortable do you feel about Elon Musk's little gang of guys heading into the FAA and doing a lot of damage there? We'll open the lines to gauge your flight anxiety next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Ireland may soon pass a bill banning trade with Israeli settlements in the occupied territories.
And in practice, what that would mean is that if you're a supermarket here and you're stocking dates that have been produced in illegal settlements, you'll be asked to pull them from your shelves.
I'm Scott Detrow. How war in the Middle East reverberates in unlikely places. That story and all things considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from medical bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have any unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. And The Lyric Stage, presenting Art. A controversial piece of art forces three best friends to examine just how well they really know each other. February 21st through March 16th at Lyric Stage Boston. Tickets at lyricstage.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browder. We have an anonymous texter sort of wrap up the last segment. I worked at Bright Horizons and remember how down-to-earth Roger and Linda were around the Boston Marathon. We're working there and recall Roger stopping in and talking to me about it as a fellow marathoner.
Yeah, it was a great place, great childcare place. You never had to worry for a second.
That's fabulous. That really is. We talked about the shakeup at the FAA earlier in the show with Juliette Kayyem, but now we want to hear from you about a variation on a theme. Instead of pacing the rage, how are you pacing your fear if you have it? We saw what happened in Toronto the other day. We know what happened in Washington several weeks ago. The airline industry has not had a good month. Direct collisions, planes flipping upside down on the tarmac, the firing of hundreds of FAA employees. Every time a major event happens, the air travel lobby loves to remind us that airplanes are still the safest way to travel. It's true. In fact, the International Air Transport Association reports that one person would have to fly every day for more than 100,000 years before they experienced a fatal accident. So you're forging ahead with travel plans. It's also spring school vacation.
School vacation.
Despite the anxiety around safety. And if you're traveling abroad a month into the Trump administration, have you noticed any changes in how others are treating Americans? 877-301-8970. I would say the following.
Yes.
If I had to travel for work on a plane, I would do it. If I had a trip planned right now, I know this is almost embarrassing, for pleasure, I probably would not do it.
Really?
And I understand all the, I read all the things about the odds. You're more likely to get hit by lightning 72 times than for a plane to go. This stuff is so fresh in memories. And then you read about eliminating rather than expanding the staff at the FAA. I hope I don't, well, maybe I do sound like a coward, and I'm surely not urging people to follow my lead. You do what you do. But it makes me, the concept makes me really nervous. Obviously not you. And Juliette said she'd fly.
I hate to fly. I never fly anywhere. If I can avoid it, I take the train or I drive. But you know what's scary about this is that Musk and company are planning on eliminating a lot of jobs at the FAA, and the jobs that they're concentrating on, not the air traffic controllers, they don't have enough of them as it is, but the people who maintain the air traffic control infrastructure, which is a little scary. Now, on the good side, if they can do something, those little whiz-bang 19-year-olds, to do something, because the system itself is kind of antiquated, they could maybe improve that with...
What is the evidence that they're working to improve anything?
Well, I'm
trying
to be hopeful.
But there's no evidence that that's on their agenda.
There is no evidence.
Shrinkage
there is no
is
evidence.
The point.
But it could be a challenge for somebody that's 21, thinks that they could fix the system, because obviously they're very... Okay, you're laughing at me.
Big Balls is going to fix the system?
I don't know. Well, maybe Big Balls would like to have a big impact on air traffic in the United States of America. I don't know. But in any case, it is very nerve-wracking. It's very nerve-wracking, the whole thing. But when you're up in the air, and you're out of control, it makes me very, very concerned.
Shouldn't a president or Elon, and well, I'm embarrassed to say, or Elon Musk, hold a press conference and say, for those of you who are nervous because of what happened, we have the most competent people working, they're understaffed, we're going to expand the staff. Aren't they doing exactly the wrong, exactly the wrong thing to do when there have been a couple of accidents? Not only a couple of accidents in terms of major airplanes, but the Alaska thing, the thing in Philadelphia. It's scary to people.
Well, when you have people that run the federal government now talking about how they want to traumatize workers and doing cruel things, I don't know if they care about this. But Dee in Ashland has a solution.
Who is he?
She says...
Oh, Dee in Ashland.
Dee in Ashland. She says, I am fine with flying, but my arms are getting very tired.
Oh, my God. Your grandfather loved that joke when he told it.
I love that. Well, I'd not heard it before, so that was great.
And by the way, to speed this conversation along, Marjorie is very anxious. She doesn't have the courage to bring it up. I will bring it up. I am not going to tell the story about when I was told if I didn't stand up for the rest of the flight, the air marshals were going to greet me in Boston because Marjorie would shoot me.
You know, and one of our texters also said, reminded us of what Juliette said, that these guys don't fly commercial, and they probably don't fly commercials.
Meaning Musk and Trump.
Yeah, and probably a lot of the people.
Well, obviously, he's president of the United States.
Well, I know, but probably a lot of people that work for them are not flying commercial either. And they point out the FAA and air traffic controllers are there even when Air Force One is flying around. They're pointing out that the problems of the rest of us maybe don't impact a billionaire like Elon Musk, who is certainly not flying.
Well, I would say, I don't have a number in front of me. Before we get to the calls at 877-301-8970, I would say maybe 99.9% of the problems that everyday Americans encounter are not ones that a wealthy president of the United States encounters. Theoretically, I was going to say he or she, but obviously he should appreciate and learn what matters to people and what their needs are and accommodate them. 877-301-8970.
Here's somebody who's flying out tonight. They say, the only reason I promised to watch my adorable 2- and 3-year-old niece and nephew, how am I going to do this, though? A lot of Ativan.
Yeah.
Is Ativan a tranquilizer?
I don't know.
Well, I think it must be a tranquilizer. Anyway.
By the way, can I say one more thing?
What?
Even before all these... You ever been in a little tiny plane?
Yes, and I hated it.
Oh, my God.
Hated it, yeah. Or those like semi-little planes, like say you fly from Boston to like Burlington, Vermont, or you fly from Boston to Cape Cod. Oh, my God, those are the ones
If
that
I
are
told you, by the way, I've been on little tiny... When I owned a store in Provincetown many, many, many years ago, I used to fly back and forth from Boston to Provincetown. I was terrified every single time, even though the flight takes 15 minutes. Also in Costa Rica, when I was there a few years ago. But you know what's incredible? When you're as big as I am, this is rather disconcerting. They have because the weight matters.
That's
They
right.
have everybody else on the plane sit on one side, and you sit alone on the other side. I mean, how disconcerting. Yeah. Okay, to get you in the mood before we get to your calls, one of our favorite sound bites ever is from the movie Airplane. Here's Leslie Nielsen.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit amphetamines. It's like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
By the way, the other one, which we'll get to, is Leslie Nielsen. That was Lloyd Bridges.
That whole movie's a riot.
It is a riot. Let's go to Heather in Cape Cod. You're first on Boston Public Radio. Hi there.
Hey there.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So my older daughter. Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
My older daughter was coming home from college in D.C. and 3 days after the plane crash, she changed it to the Amtrak. So she rode 9 hours back and forth this past weekend.
And explain what her, I mean, it's fairly obvious.
I get it. You're on the ground.
What did she say to you?
Very pretty views out the window.
So she was basically just watching too many videos of the incident and just got herself completely freaked out. And when I called her after she made the change, she said, well, I might have rushed into that. I think it's probably the safest time to travel is right now. But either way, she actually said she loved the train and to not knock it because she enjoyed the time and got a lot of work done.
Train's great.
I love the train.
That's a long time, though. Thank you, Heather.
If you book early, because Amtrak is expensive,
You can do it.
but if you book early, like a few months in advance, you can get really great rates. And if you leave it off hours, you can really get great rates,
Let
too.
me read a text from Anonymous.
Yep.
I've driven in Boston and ridden on the Red Line enough that no other form of transportation scares me. So I think that... By the way, Phil Liang is going to be here for an hour of Ask the GM sometime in March, and I don't remember when, but it is sometime
Here's a good
in March.
question.
Right.
Read the FAA cuts. Is Doge doing any... Some people are calling it doggy now, Jim. Is Doge doing any risk analysis or just cutting haphazardly based on vibes? What's your answer?
Well, didn't they eliminate the staff at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission?
Totally haphazardly.
And they had to rehire all
They had
these
to.
people. I mean, it's just, by the way, beyond haphazardly and getting rid of people clearly who shouldn't be gotten rid of, even if you want to cut the size of the personnel, there are a lot of these that are really dangerous. The nuclear thing is dangerous. The FAA is dangerous, not to mention cruel. By the way, March 12th is when Phil Liang will join us. Al on the road, welcome to the show. Hi.
How you doing, guys?
Great.
Not for a second do I think Musk and Trump are doing anything to benefit the common man. But I personally, I'm not scared of flying. My wife is terrified. My daughter is going to Italy for a soccer trip in April, and my wife is going. And I'm totally stoking her fears, hoping that she'll back out and I get to go.
Boy, that is an honest and horrible phone call, Al. Thank you for your call, as always. We appreciate it. Can we now play the Leslie Nielsen bite from Airplane? Here it is.
Can you fly this plane and land it? Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
By the way, can I tell you something? I've heard that about 3,000 times. Should I be embarrassed? I laugh every single time when he says, and don't call me Shirley.
Can we play one more?
What's that?
Because we can't get enough. One last gag that our staff put together from the 1980 airline disaster comedy known as Airplane. Here it is.
How soon can you land? I can't tell. You can tell me I'm a doctor. No, I mean, I'm just not sure. Or can't you take a guess? Well, not for another 2 hours. You can't take a guess for another 2 hours? No, I mean, we can't land for another 2 hours.
I'm sorry. I think that is as funny.
Oh, my God. There's one funny thing after another.
Okay, Nancy.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Here's somebody
One
that
second,
says,
Nancy.
I am really hating this segment. I'm flying tomorrow for the first time in a year, hoping it's going to be fine. Keep the 19-year-old big balls away from the air traffic controllers.
By the way, if people weren't listening to us the last few weeks or have missed it, Big Balls is the nickname, which apparently he's fine with.
Yes.
Of the 19-year-old. Is this the Northeastern kid?
He's 19-year-old Northeastern kid. I'm sure his parents
He's one of the Doge
very
people.
proud.
Okay, let's go to Nancy and Hudson. Hi, Nancy and Hudson.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
I always laugh at that Leslie Nielsen, don't call me Shirley.
So do I. Thank you for that.
So we were in Canada over the weekend. We were in Quebec City. We drove.
Yeah.
And we were treated just fine. And I think they knew we were American. We were worried that our tires would be slashed. So I ordered a bunch of Maple Leaf stickers and a bunch of Harris Waltz stickers because I didn't have any left to put on the car. And then we forgot to put them on, and our car was fine. But we're going back to Nova Scotia this summer, so we're holding on to the stickers.
That is beyond brilliant, Nancy. I mean, putting them on would be a good idea, too. But that is... How great is Quebec City, Nancy? Is that a beautiful little place?
The Winter Carnival, and it was absolutely delightful. And we got 2 blizzards while we were there. There was about 12 feet of snow on the ground by the time we left. But it was great.
It is great. Hey, Nancy, thanks. That's a brilliant strategy there. Thank you for the call.
Here's a texter. One of those Musk lackeys, the Northeastern student, otherwise known as Big Balls, he was a student at a school in New York where I previously taught. He was a expletive deleted then, and I'm sure he's an expletive deleted still. There you go.
877-301-8970. We're talking about fear of flying and whether you have it in part. Well, you may have it anyway, but if you have it accentuated, I guess, because of what's happened in the last month. And I am in that category, even though I intellectually know that, as I said at the top, it is the safest form of travel. I'm sorry, you have one?
I'm 27, never been on an airplane. This year is supposed to be my first flight. Not the best time to get over my fears.
Yeah. You know, by the way, one of the incredible things, and we should have asked Juliette about this, we didn't have time today, maybe next week, the fact that everybody survived, even though somebody was injured, some were injured in that thing in Toronto is really... Do you see the video of them hanging, some of them hanging upside down?
Like bats.
Like bats,
one
the
of the
guy
passengers said, yeah.
Dawn in New Hampshire, thank you for the call. Welcome to the show. Hello.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
I'm more worried. I'm not as worried about flying. My husband and I just in January booked a Viking cruise, and he is very worried about being in Europe and how will people treat us. You know, the Europeans, we're going to Germany and to, so I don't know.
Well, the Germans in particular are not particularly fond of Vance and Donald Trump.
I hope they don't hold it against you, Dawn, but I understand the concern.
That's what we're worried about, that by September, it's going to be maybe unpleasant to be in Europe as
Dawn.
much as we want to be, and we think, he has relatives over there.
Dawn, can I try to give you a little help here? I just thought of this. Rick Steves is going to be with us tomorrow. He's got a new fabulous book about his first travels to Europe, but we'll ask him about that, about how are Americans being treated in particularly, well, in any part of Europe. But so tune in tomorrow. Rick will be with us, Dawn. Thanks. Hello to your husband, too. We appreciate it.
Here's Kay and Cape Ann. I planned a trip to Ireland for the month of May, taking Aer Lingus, so feel fairly safe. Actually, I took Aer Lingus when I went to Ireland. It was great. Anyway, my need to get out of the United States weighs heavier on my mind than a plane crash. And like the previous caller, Kay is not looking forward to being questioned about Trump like she was questioned about him in 2018. I suspect it will be worse now.
Well, I told you the story, which I would argue is a minor version of this. I happened to have been in France. Oh, Jim was in France. Marjorie says. I was in France during George W. Bush and was treated, I wouldn't say poorly, but they were not happy with Americans, and it trickled down. And then I was there during Obama, and it was a totally
different thing.
And I would argue George Bush pales in terms of how he's felt about in Western Europe as compared to Donald Trump.
I also remember one of my kids took a school trip during George W. Bush's, and you know what they told them?
No.
Everybody asked, say you're Canadian.
Oh, yeah, you told me that. How horrible is that?
Well,
and by the way, that woman was laughing when she said that a minute ago. I mean, wouldn't you, if you thought of it, put maple leaves on your car?
Yeah, that's what they did. They put maple leaves on their backpacks and told people they were Canadian if anybody asked.
You know what's just incredible? I was going to say, and she said she had Harris, and I couldn't remember this because it's been 3 months who the vice president was. I realized it was Tim Walz, but it took me a couple of minutes. There.
Here's Jessica in Jamaica Plain. My husband flies for work every week, just landed in LA moments ago, but last night I double-checked that the life insurance policy is up to date.
That is a little callous there.
Oh, my God.
Let's go to Tom in Rhode Island. Tom, we're talking about fear of flying, particularly in light of recent events. Hi, Tom.
Speaking of deriving profit from this chaos, keep in mind, this is all a tool by Elon Musk. He is hoping that all this chaos and fear allows him to leverage this situation to put his SpaceX employees in the position to run the FAA and to run the air traffic control. He's admitted as such, and this is what their goal is. Keep fighting, keep resisting. They will not divide us.
Thank
you, Tom.
Very much.
Well, President Trump was asked about conflicts of interest by Jonathan Swan, one of my favorite reporters in the New York Times. And by the way, he is the only reporter who gave it to Trump in an interview.
He was at Axios, wasn't he?
Mano. He's at the New York Times now.
No. When he did that one-on-one,
I'm not sure.
I think it was
I'm
at
not sure where he
Axios,
was, but he was really great, and he questioned him about this conflict of interest. And Trump says what he always says, something like, well,
I didn't know anything about it.
I haven't heard about it. I don't really know. There won't be any conflict of interest. And, of course, there already is conflict of interest up to his eyebrows, but he won't, of course, say that. Okay, let's go to Carola. I think that's right, in New Hampshire?
Hi.
Hi, it's actually Carola.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Carola.
Okay.
Hi, Carola.
I'm calling because of, first of all, I am not afraid to fly. I love flying. I also love the train. But especially the Toronto thing, I read a really neat article that was about how the planes are built to not have fatalities in that kind of a thing as much as possible. I don't know if you saw it. I forget where I saw it, but like the wings are designed to fall off, and they've put the fuel all in the wings so the fuselage doesn't blow up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot safer for passengers, and they build the thing much more sturdily. It was a fascinating article, but I think airline safety, if anything, is better now than it was.
Well, you know the difference between you and me, Carola, and I admire you, is, and I don't mean this facetiously, you're drawing a conclusion based upon the facts. And while you were talking, all I could hear is the flight attendant saying, and don't worry, if the plane lands on its ceiling or whatever you call it, you're going to be just fine. It doesn't, I'm not there yet, but I know,
Well,
you're more
but
grown
they
up.
were.
I know, and they were.
Mean, and the crew was trained.
I
They
know.
practiced. And honestly, we had tickets for Disney World the last week of September 2001, and there was no way we're not going to fly. I would always fly. Just by 2 cents.
Thanks for the call, Carol. Here's Eric from Hopedale. The first time I flew was down to Fort Lauderdale during Hurricane Sandy. The pilot said there would be a little turbulence. It was like rolling on a roller coaster.
Can I tell you, I feel when the planes dip,
Oh,
the turbulence, I remember in my body, like almost every one of those I ever had in my life. I mean, how frightening. And by the way, they almost never crash from that turbulence. What are you laughing about?
No way I'm going on a plane. Alien beamed up in probe ship? Maybe.
Speaking of alien beamed up in probe, if people didn't see the Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary Sunday night and you want to watch one skit, the skit with Kate McKinnon and Meryl Streep, who has never appeared, which is incredible to me, on Saturday Night Live, is the funniest thing I've made. The two of them, beyond brilliant. You got to check it out. Okay, Jared, we always guess. Is Jared, no, he's like a world traveler. Are you scared of flying? The answer is never, correct?
Never.
Never. And why is that?
Well, until recently, because nothing really ever happened in this country or
Well, it just did happen. So does that affect anything?
Well, you know, I was just on vacation, as you know, and I was on 6 different flights, and I thought, that's not a number I think I feel comfortable with. This increases my odds a little bit, but you start watching a movie and have a little drink, and then you don't worry about anything.
Well, the odds are overwhelmingly on your side. I mean, we hadn't had this bad of an accident as we had in Washington in, 40 years or 30 years or something like that. So the safety record is pretty good, right?
It's pretty good, so I'm not going to worry.
Okay. What are you doing on your show?
So we're talking to Andrea Kaylin, who is the president of NEC. As you know, they just auctioned off that Stradivarius violin for $11.3 million. We'll talk about the violin and what it means for students now that they're doing that. The modern-day hero, Brian Stevenson, joins us. He wrote the book Just Mercy, which of course also became a film. Talks to us about, on the 10th anniversary of the publication of that memoir, how the American justice system has changed and how it hasn't. He, of course, is somebody who's gotten people off death row and the wrongfully convictions overturned, and he's behind the National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Montgomery, Alabama. And then we'll look at the Phoenix of Gaza. This is a virtual reality exhibition that was intended to document Gaza, but now will be instrumental in it helping illustrate its rebuilding.
You mean it's going to show Gaza before it was bombed?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. It was documenting it, and Kate Ellis has reported that for us.
So wherever you went, it was 3 flights in both directions?
Well, I came back this weekend when there was a snowstorm, and so I was rerouted. I spent basically Saturday night surveying the country from the air.
That's why I'm not flying.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking.
Jared, good to see you. Good luck. Your show's on at 2 o'clock if you didn't know, so hurry up.
See you later.
It's on in 3 minutes and 25 seconds.
Thank you very much, Jared. Talk to you later.
Bye.
And thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thanks to people that came down to the Boston Public Library on this chilly day. You can keep up with us 24/7 by our podcast or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by political analyst Chuck Todd. As Jim said earlier, our hippie travel guru Rick Steves, who's going to tell us about his book, about his hippie journeys when he was like a 20-something kid. Former Public Safety Secretary and Suffolk County Sheriff Andrea Cabral, and Adam Conover of Adam Ruins Everything, ahead of his show at the Wilbur Theater. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show with Jared Boner is going to be on right after us on 89.7 GBH No News, just us, in a brief break, and then right to the Culture Show.
I want to say something.
Yes, Jim.
And I have to be careful. I'm going to say I really enjoyed this show, but the problem with saying you really enjoyed the show, the implication is, as opposed to other shows which you didn't enjoy, but every guest today was fabulous.
Jim,
The 3
we know
restauranteurs.
why you enjoyed the
Linda
food.
and
I know
because we got free food. I know.
We got lots of free food.
Well,
That's right. Lots
helps.
of free
And by the way,
food.
I've been eating the lasagna and the sushi during the breaks. I mean, and that chocolate cookie.
What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show. Next on GBH 89.7.